And do not neglect doing good and sharing, for with such sacrifices, God is pleased. When we look at persons who have greatly impacted their time, our country, and our world, you will know that there were times of great sacrifice and personal challenge. Many times, to change paradigms or to correct wrong situations, one must be prepared to sacrifice comfort, endure challenges, and at times ridicule and misunderstanding to bring about positive change. You must also be prepared sometimes to sacrifice, that sacrifices will require and demand a major investment of your time to accomplish a positive outcome. Sometimes you will sow and another person will reap all of your hard work. I want to encourage you that when your duties and responsibilities demand great sacrifice, remember that you are a person who is positively and working hard to positively impact others. Recognize that you may have to endure and persevere and continue to work hard. 2 Thessalonians 3 and 13 states, "As for you, brothers and sisters, do not grow weary of doing good." A true story is told about a farmer who lost his barn and all his supplies. And as he walked through the rubble to examine all his losses, he heard a sound. And as he moved towards the sound, he discovered as he pushed back the rubble that in the midst of the rubble, there were 4 chicks who had survived, but their mother had lost her life. And so in the midst of all his loss, there was a sign of hope and new beginnings. As I conclude this morning, senators, and I challenge you, self-sacrifices require one, that change will at times demand great sacrifices. You must be determined whether you're able to make the sacrifices needed to have a positive outcome. Secondly, that self-sacrifice also means that you must be prepared for the negative feedback and the challenges that may come your way. Thirdly, that sometimes your best efforts and sacrifices may fail to accomplish your goals in the first instance. Persevere anyway. And fourthly, you must also understand that sometimes the people you are trying to help may not understand or appreciate all that you have done to make things better for them. Do not become discouraged. Work hard and do your best anyway. Philippians 1 and 6 states this, "And I am sure of this, that he who has begun a good work in you will bring it to completion in the day of Jesus Christ." Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, I lift up each senator this morning. Help them, O Lord, to discern the matters that require self-sacrifice, endurance, and fortitude. May they be strong in you and in their personal resolve to move our country to a better place. Equip them with strength, vision, and endurance to remain faithful to their assignments. We pray all these things in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Please join in the prayer of our Lord. Our Father, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Good morning, Senators. Today is the 4th of April, 2022. Order of business. Adoption of minutes.
Madam President, I move that the minutes of the meeting of the Senate held on March 21st, 2022 be adopted.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and second that the minutes of the meeting held on the 21st of March, 2022 be adopted. As many as in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The minutes of the 21st of March, 2022 are adopted. Motion for leave of absence, leave to resign seats. Swearing in of new senators. Communication by the President. The chair is grateful to our Senate chaplain, Reverend Carla Culmer, for timely spiritual guidance and prayer. The chair also extends sincere and heartfelt condolences to Senator Ronald Duncombe and his family on the passing of his dear sister, Gwendolyn Ramming. She will be laid to rest on April 10th, 2022. Senator, your family is in our thoughts and prayers during this time. Praying for you. Since I last sat on March 10th, 2022, the Bahamas lost a mother, adopted daughter, adopted sister, adopted niece, and my friend. She was a beautiful, kind-hearted, well-mannered lady with a quick smile and a grateful heart. Carissa Culmer dearly loved the Lord and her only child. She was the kind of young lady who, although discouraged with the vicissitudes of real life, saw her glass as half full. We often spoke with optimism of her future dreams, goals, aspirations, and the possibility of her starting a new life in Canada. I don't know what occurred on that fateful evening of March 10th, 2022, but I sympathize with the pain and anguish she must have experienced during her final moments on earth. Immediately prior to her demise, Carissa was heartbroken because despite our best efforts, she could not obtain justice in a matter against her alleged abuser. She was profoundly disappointed that despite taking the matter to court and detailing the violence she experienced, including being beaten, choked, kicked, and threats of death, the accused was sentenced to a mere 12 months probation with failure to comply, resulting in 6 months at the Bahamas Department of Corrections. In mid-December 2021, a warrant of arrest was issued for the suspect for failing to attend court. Until Carissa's demise in March 2022, the alleged suspect was in plain sight, active on social media, partying, and enjoying life. Meanwhile, Carissa was never advised that the warrant for his arrest was satisfied. For 3 long months, she lived in perpetual fear for her safety, afraid to go out, afraid to be seen, and afraid to be in public. Again, she strongly believed that she was denied justice and protection under the law. This recent unfortunate and dramatic case of baby Bella cases of baby Bella, Heavenly Tavisis, Carissa Culmer, and the 14-year-old child who was impregnated by a man almost 3 times her senior, only for him to receive a slap on the wrist sentence, reveals that our system is in need of critical legislative and social reform. During the past few years, the visibility around domestic violence, sexual assaults, and incidents of abuse against women and children in our country has substantially increased. Justifiably, there's public outrage and sympathy for our victims. Some victims choose not to report domestic violence or sexual crimes because of fear and lack of protection. They fear victim blaming, parental shaming, social judgment, lack of sensitivity by law enforcement, and a whole host of other serious concerns. We must not judge these victims, but we must ask ourselves, what can we do as a society so that these victims feel supported, protected, and encouraged to come forward? This is not a political football. This is beyond politics. It is also demoralizing and dehumanizing when victims who do file charges against their perpetrators diligently attend court and give evidence, only to see their abusers receive plea deals with a lenient sentence. At best, the accused may spend 2 to 3 Christmases in jail and then is back on the streets to lure other victims via social media, in the neighborhood, or elsewhere. Meanwhile, their victims are traumatized for life. And if this is what the law allows, then I declare that the law must change. Societal laws must reflect societal values. What we value, we protect. The vulnerable in our society, from Grand Bahama in the north to Inagua in the south, need to feel protected, need to feel safe, and need to feel empowered. This is not about politics. The Bellas, the Heavenlies, and Carissas all need protection. Minors, in particular, need the strongest form of protection from sexual predators, whether or not they consent. The law needs to protect the vulnerable even from themselves. Sexual predators should be locked behind bars for a significant period of time and fully rehabilitated. I note that there are public awareness campaigns, policies, laws, advertisement on TV to safeguard and protect lobster, crawfish, grouper, flamingos, conch, and historical sites. All of that the chair supports. But we need to be just as open and comfortable discussing all that is needed to protect human lives, our nation's darlings. Every Bahamian woman, man, and minor should know that their safety and empowerment is of our utmost concern. And I say it again, this is not a political football. This is not about politics. How do we protect the Bellas, the Heavenlies, the Carissas? How do we protect our vulnerable minors? How do we move the society to be more just and fair? now more important than ever, is a call to action. From a legislative perspective, I am pleased that the Gender Violence Bill and mental health legislation, Senator Pinder, are both under review with drafts to Cabinet and Parliament forthcoming. In addition, there is a need for comprehensive review and reform of sentencing, which will result in stiffer penalties that are just and fair, notwithstanding the conduct of the minor or woman. Harsher penalties should be given to second-time offenders. Perhaps the starting point for sentencing guidelines I submit should be, what is the appropriate sentence if the 14-year-old victim is your son, your daughter, your brother, your sister, your cousin, your niece, or your nephew? Designated courts for domestic violence and sexual offenses resulting in swift justice. Stiffer penalties for persons who utilize social media to communicate, lure, or entice minors into criminal activities. I agree that the age of consent should be increased to 18, and the implementation of sexual offenders registry. From a social policy perspective, there is dire need for focused attention that will explore implementation of the following: law enforcement sensitivity, communication and awareness training on domestic and sexual victims, heightened public awareness, education, and campaigns geared towards identifying and describing abuse and sexual crimes, increase and properly manned hotlines for suicidal persons and victims of domestic violence, abuse, and sexual crimes, increased level of confidentiality and privacy for physical and sexually abused victims, immediate access to competent mental/emotional health services and counseling for victims, perpetrators, and finally, I hear you, Ms. Candy Gibson, incentives via Crown lands and tax-free imports for the establishment and building of safe houses. In the interim, I would also like to encourage NGOs, professional organizations, including the Bahamas Bar Association, Rotary Clubs, Zonta, fraternities, sororities, women and children advocacy groups, concerned citizens, parliamentarians, churches, etc., to consistently advocate for change, for that which is right and that which is just. Let us be each other's keeper and the dedicated guardians of our future generation. The injustices and inequality are not taking a break, and neither can we. In the words of Martin Luther King Jr., and I quote, "Injustice everywhere, anywhere, is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly." May God continue to bless this Commonwealth of the Bahamas and keep us all safe. I thank you, and I hereby table the President's communication. Messages from the Governor General. Messages from the House of Assembly.
Message from the House of Assembly.
Bahamas number 7. Message to the Honorable the President and Honorable members of the Senate from the Speaker and representatives of the Honorable House of Assembly. The House of Assembly acquaints the Honorable the Senate that they have passed the following bills and desire the consent of that honorable chamber, namely, a bill for an act to provide for the continuous service in the public service of Raymond Mackey, a bill for an act to provide for the continuous service in the public service of Mary Mitchell, a bill for an act to provide for the continuous service in the public service of Japheth Edison Delaveau, a bill for an act to provide for a pension for Tellis Bethel, retired Commodore of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, a bill for an act to amend the National Honors Act 2016. House of Assembly, Nassau, the 28th March 2022. Sylvanus Petty, Deputy Speaker, for Speaker. Bahamas number 8. Message to the Honorable, the President, and Honorable Members of the Senate from the Speaker and representatives of the Honorable House of Assembly. The House of Assembly acquaints the Honorable the Senate that they have passed the following bills and desire the consent of that Honorable Chamber, namely, a bill for an act to amend the Proceeds of Crime Act, a bill for an act to amend the Anti-Terrorism Act to empower the Financial Intelligence Unit to impose an administrative penalty on any financial institution who contravenes any provision thereof, a bill for an act to amend the Register of Beneficial Ownership Act 2018. House of Assembly, Nassau, 30th March 2022. Patricia DeVoe, Speaker.
Laying of documents by ministers.
Madam President, I beg leave to lay on the table of the Senate copy of the following: the Health Services COVID-19 Prevention and Management of Community Spread Amendment Number 10 Rules 2022.
Order that the document be brought up. Order the document do lie on the table.
Madam President, I beg leave to lay on the table of the Senate a copy of the Judicial and Legal Service Prescribed Public Officers Act Amendment to Schedule Number 2, Order 2022.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table.
And finally, Madam President, I wish to lay on the table of the Senate a copy of the Royal Bahamas Police Force Commissioners Policing Plan 2022.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Communications by ministers. Communications by senators. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michaela Barnett Ellis.
Good morning, Madam President. Again, good morning, Madam President. Let me first say that I adopt and wholeheartedly agree the contents of the President's communication this morning. It is refreshing to hear such sound words and such strong words from the President of the Senate. I can only pray that your words flow to all the ears that they need to go to. And with that, Madam President, over the last several months, Examples of discrimination against women and girls have taken center stage. We have been horrified to learn of mothers who were attacked and killed while holding their children, mothers overwhelmed by the mental and physical toll of domestic violence, young girls taken advantage of by adult men. The belief that wives cannot have a say in when to engage in sex, all because they are female. All around us, there are indicators that discrimination against women and girls remains a troubling component of our community. We see it in the response to crimes against us. We have unfortunately heard it in the comments of our community leaders. We notice it in the lack of response to our needs. Madam President, as you know, women are over 50% of our population. We are teachers, law enforcement officers, entrepreneurs, bank officers, sales clerks, managers, lawyers, pump attendants, parliamentarians, cabinet ministers, nurses, doctors, executives, and public servants. And yet, we seem to have to persuade this community of our worth. We cannot seem to convince them that men and women ought to have the same constitutional right to pass on their citizenship to their children. Discrimination against women and girls is accepted as normal by many. We have deep-rooted patriarchal gender stereotypes. The most recent unfortunate example is the mindset that girls are partly to blame when men have unlawful sexual intercourse with them. That is a simple example of discrimination. Discrimination is the unfair and prejudicial treatment of people and groups based on characteristics such as race, gender, age, or sexual orientation. As you said, this is not party politics. This is not a political football. We all have a role to play. Discrimination against women cannot only come to the forefront when a politician or government official says something inappropriate or when they are trending online. Unfortunately, when the public attention moves on, so does the outcry. Collectively, we must actively continue to address discrimination against women. We must take deliberate action. It takes more than a tweet, a Facebook post, or even a press release. We must change the way we think and the way we behave. Last month, former Prime Minister Christie was asked his thoughts about marital rape. He said, "You begin with looking at the victim and understanding what it is you have to do to protect victims." I think this approach can be applied to all matters relating to women. What can we do when we begin by looking at women and understanding their lives to protect them and demonstrate their value? I'm not saying all women are saints and that they can't be as toxic as men. Women are still victims of unequal treatment, whether they are saints or sinners. Whenever we speak as an opposition caucus about issues of concern, our leader asks us, what is the solution? It's not enough to complain, but to make the Bahamas better, which is the goal at the end of the day, we must offer solutions, even if they appear or are ignored. There are 3 ways we can change the culture. Our sentencing practices for sexual offenses are lenient. I don't often quote him, but in the case of Wilson, Balvin, Torboda, and Regina, Sir Michael Barnett in his decision commented, "We must also accept that rape is a heinous offense that must result in incarceration. But there is a case for stiffer penalties other than those that have been previously imposed." The Bahamas does not have a formal sentencing guidelines document. Other Caribbean jurisdictions like Jamaica, Cayman, and those under the Eastern Caribbean Court do. As recently as 2020, England enacted comprehensive sentencing legislation, the Sentencing Act 2020. Sentencing guidelines are comprehensive documents which provide judges with structured guidance on sentencing. These documents, Madam President, are so detailed. They list the factors that you must consider in terms of sentencing and give suggestions as to the appropriate sentence discount to correspond with these factors. I submit that this is something that law reform should look into. The second thing is passing the proposed gender violence bill, as you've said. This gender violence bill has been bouncing around for 2 administrations. This is the 3rd administration. I'm not a gambling person, but 3rd time's a charm. This legislation, amongst others, creates an authority so that NGOs that provide relief to gender violence victims can work collectively as a unit and provide relief. Providing help is not only the government's responsibility. These organizations and these persons dedicated to helping gender violence victims can have a greater impact when they work together. I've invited several persons today, one of whom is Candy Gibson, and I must say, I would be remiss if I did not also lend my support to the request for Crown Grant to help build safe houses throughout the country. Government support does not always have to be the provision of cash. Finally, a point that I think I have said ad nauseum at this point, amending the Sexual Offenses Act. We don't need to be like Jamaica, where marital rape is a separate offense. An amendment to remove those 5 words, to delete Section 15, and to state that offenses apply irrespective of the nature of the relationship between the perpetrator and complainant, would remove the exception to the definition of rape that discriminates against married women. The government, all governments, must lead the way to change the mindset that results in discrimination. In 1993, we promised to condemn discrimination against women in all forms. We agreed to pursue by all appropriate means and without delay a policy of eliminating discrimination against women. We have not done enough. We must do better. We deserve a better Bahamas, and collectively, we can shape a better Bahamas. May God continue to bless and protect the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, especially our daughters and our women. Madam President, that is my communication, which I table.
Thank you, Senator, for your contribution. Thank you, Senator, for your contribution. Questions? Answers to questions? Preparation of petitions? Appointment of select committees? Reports of committees? First reading of bills.
Madam President, with your permission, Madam President, before I move to first reading, I would just like to say, in response to your communication and the communication by Senator Ellis, that I too adopt your communication, which I believe sums up the feeling of all of us in here and the Bahamian public in general. And similarly, Madam President, I want to commend Senator Ellis on a well-reasoned and constructive communication. The subject of domestic violence and child abuse has once again come to the fore in recent times, and it has spurred a lot of outrage from various quarters, and we see various political leaders and other leaders condemning the practice and calling for enhanced protection of victims and punishment of perpetrators. I'm hopeful, Madam President, that this outrage and the conversation that we're now having spurs us to action, because as Senator rightly said, these are some vexing issues that have, we've been dealing with them for several administrations, and hopefully it is not the usual practice as it seems in our country, where there's outrage over an event. And as time goes on, we see that outrage subside and we are back to where we were. So hopefully, Madam President, this galvanizes us at all levels to do what we can to make sure that our children are protected, and those who would prey upon them and victimize them are punished to the fullest extent of the law. And when that law needs to be enhanced, we can do so speedily. So thank you, Madam President, for that. And for first readings, Madam President, with your permission, I understand that there were some amendments to the National Honors Amendment Bill. And so what I would like to do at this stage of first reading is to, and asking the concurrence of the side opposite, to withdraw the addition of the National Honors Amendment Bill that is currently on the agenda, and to replace it with the corrected copy that I have here. No, I don't think that. I think there was just typographical error, no substantive change.
Senator Handfield?
We have no issue.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Handfield.
Thank you, Senator. Madam President, I then so I would withdraw the copy that's on the table and replace it with this corrected version, and move for and we will deal with that at the point of second reading today, Madam President.
You'll deal with this. Okay.
Yes. And so, for additional first reading, Madam President, I move for first reading, beg to have introduced and read for the first time a bill for an act to amend the Child Protection Act.
Is there a second? Or let the document be brought up? It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a first time. A bill for an act to amend the Child Protection Act. As many as are in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the document be read a first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Child Protection Act.
For the first reading of bills.
Yes, Madam President. Madam President, I beg leave to introduce and have read for the first time a bill for an act to amend the Criminal Procedure Code Act.
Is there a seconder? Order the document be brought up. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a first time and tabled. A bill for an act to amend the Child Protection Act. Those who are in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. A bill for an act to amend the Criminal Procedure Code Act. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the document be read a first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Criminal Procedure Code Act.
For the first reading of bills.
Madam President, Madam President, I beg leave to introduce and have read for the first time a bill for an act to amend the Juries Act.
Is there a seconder? Order the document be brought up. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a first time, a bill for an act to amend the Juries Act. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order the document be read for a first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Juries Act.
For the first reading of bills,
Madam President, I beg leave to introduce and have read for a first time a bill for an act to amend the Magistrates Act.
is there a seconder? Order the document be brought up. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a first time. A bill for an act It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a first time and tabled. A bill for an act to amend the Magistrates Act. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the document be read a first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Magistrates Act.
For the first reading of bills,
Yes, Madam President. Madam President, I beg leave to have introduced and read for the first time a bill for an act to amend the Evidence Act.
is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded. Order that the document be brought up. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a first time and tabled. A bill for an act to amend the Evidence Act. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the document be read a first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Evidence Act.
For the first reading of bills,
Madam President, I beg leave to introduce and have read for the first time a bill for an act to amend the Financial Transactions Reporting Act.
is there a seconder? Order that the document be brought up. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a first time and tabled. A bill for an act to amend the Financial Transactions Reporting Act. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the document be read a first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Financial Transactions Reporting Act.
For the first reading of bills,
Madam President, I beg leave to introduce and have read for the first time a bill for an act to amend the Register of Beneficial Ownership Act 2018.
is there a seconder? Order that the document be brought up. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a first time and tabled. A bill for an act to amend the Register of Beneficial Ownership Act 2018. As many as are in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the document be read a first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Register of Beneficial Ownership Act 2018.
For the first reading of bills,
Yes, Madam President, I beg leave to introduce and have read for the first time a bill for an act to amend the Anti-Terrorism Act to empower the Financial Intelligence Unit to impose an administrative penalty on any financial institution who contravenes any provision thereof.
is there a seconder? Order the document be brought up. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a first time and tabled. A bill for an act to amend the Anti-Terrorism Act to empower the Financial Intelligence Unit to impose an administrative penalty on any financial institution who contravenes any provision thereof. As many as are in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the document be read for a first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Anti-Terrorism Act to empower the Financial Intelligence Unit to impose an administrative penalty on any financial institution who contravenes any provision thereof.
Further first reading of bills.
Madam President, I beg leave to introduce and have read for a first time a bill for an act to amend the Proceeds of Crime Act.
Is there a seconder? Order that the document be brought up. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a first time and tabled. A bill for an act to amend the Proceeds of Crime Act. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the document be read for a first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Proceeds of Crime Act.
Further first reading of bills.
Yes, Madam President. Madam President, I beg leave to introduce and have read for the first time a bill for an act to provide for a pension for Tellis Bethel, retired Commodore of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force.
Is there a seconder? Order the document be brought up. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a first time and tabled. A bill for an act to provide for a pension for Tellis Bethel, retired Commodore of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order the document be read for a first time.
A bill for an act to provide for a pension for Tellis Bethel, retired Commodore of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force.
Further first reading of bills.
There are none, Madam President.
Second reading of bills. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Alkitis.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam President. Madam President, I rise to move for the second reading and committal of the National Honors Amendment Bill 2022. And Madam President, we will as well today debate the private, what they call the private pension bills to allow for the bridging of service of several public servants, retired, and we would like at the appropriate time, Madam President, to seek the concurrence of the side opposite to debate the Tellis Bethel pension bill, which we are just introducing for the first time today.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Senator Henfield.
Okay, so
Thank you for your concurrence, Senator Henfield.
at that time, we will debate all of the pensions together, and I thank the side opposite for their concurrence and agreement. Madam President, we are here to debate amendments to the National Honors Bill, the National Honors Act 2016, which, when it was passed, repealed the National Honors Act of 2007 as well as the National Heroes Act of 2007 and brought these two acts under one piece of legislation. And so we have under this National Honors Act all of the qualifications for national hero and the process by which those honors are bestowed. This is a continuation of the work, Madam President, of the National Heroes Committee led by individuals like the Honorable Fred Mitchell, who is now Minister of Foreign Affairs, Terrence Bethel, Father Sebastian Campbell, Loretta Butler Turner, C.B. Moss, Freddie Munnings, and many others who initially were advocating for a National Heroes Day. And as you know, we now celebrate National Heroes Day as the second Monday in October. And the promulgation, the institution of a system of national honors, Madam President, I believe, is just a continuation in the progress of us as a nation, where we have political independence and we have all of our symbols, and the next step along those lines is to have a system of national honors that people can strive for, that can be respected. And as you know, we currently have a dual system. We still retain the Queen's honors, and we run along parallel to that a system of our own national honors. And it is hoped that one day we can move totally to a system of our national honors, and we no longer have the honors that are bestowed by the monarchy. And this, Madam President, it ties in, or it is consonant with the debate that we see arise from time to time. And again, as a result, I presume, of the recent royal visit, we have the debate as to whether we should move to republic and do away with the monarchy altogether. And differing opinions on that, Madam President, because even we find that in our system of national honors, it's a good thing to have your own national honors, the National Hero, the Order of the Nation, etc., the Order of the Bahamas. But there remains an affinity to some of those other honors that people strive for, Madam President. But hopefully, as we continue to develop as a nation, we can move to the point where we have a single set of national honors that enjoy the respect and the desire of all those concerned. The amendments here today, Madam President, that we are doing and I'll just go through the amendments to bring some. We're correcting a few errors and allowing for the revocation of orders, and we're also expanding the categories of orders that are available. As you know, the highest honor is that of National Hero, and there are some other honors below that, ranking in order of seniority. And what we're doing here is allowing for certain medals and badges, etc., that can be made available to people who do very important work in terms of nation building, but they are unheralded because they're not publicized. They might be a teacher on a family island, a coach that coaches children, someone in the religious community, someone who's doing service amongst the community, but they are not elected, and but for some system of recognition, their work will go unrecognized on the national stage. And so that is, in large part, what we're doing here today. So the First Amendment, Madam President, it actually defines what civil society and public service means. So it amends the Principal Act to actually, in the Principal Act at the beginning, there are certain definitions. And what this amendment does is it puts within the Act what civil society is. And the definition that we are inserting is civil society includes charities, charitable persons, international organizations with humanitarian objectives, non-governmental organizations improving health, education, and the standard of living in the Bahamas. And it defines the public service as it says public service includes government ministries, full and quasi-government departments, units, and other entities, public and private corporations, wholly or partially owned by the government. So to avoid any doubt, what we're doing is in the definitions clause of the Principal Act, we are putting those two definitions. Um, the third clause of the amendment, Madam President, third clause of the amendment amends Section 5 of the Principal Act, and this is what I was speaking of. Within the Principal Act, there are what they call societies of honor, societies of honor. And so, based on their rankings, the societies of honor are the Order of National Hero, the Order of the Nation, the Order of the Bahamas, the Order of Excellence, the Order of Distinction, the Order of Merit, the Order of Lignum Vitae, and any other honor constituted by the Governor General. And so what we are amending is we're saying not any other honor, but any other society of honors. That's what we are inserting there. And as well, in section 3, the clause 3, which is amending section 5, we are saying that each of those societies shall be governed by their own regulations, and even within those societies, there shall be a hierarchy. Clause 4 of this amendment bill, which amends, again, section 5 by adding an additional section 5A. That is where these additional categories of honors are added. And so we're inserting 5A, which reads, there shall be awarded by the Chancellor, who's the Governor General, on the recommendation of the Advisory Committee. And the Advisory Committee is comprised of parliamentarians as well as citizens. There shall be awarded by the Chancellor on the recommendation of the Advisory Committee distinguished service badges and medals in honor of service by Bahamians serving in the public service, and distinguished service badges for exceptional service by members of civil society, medals of bravery, and then it says that the Chancellor may, in his absolute discretion, award a medal of honor for long, valuable, or exceptional service to the Governor General, his spouse, or the Governor General's household staff, which is called the Vice Regal Household. Which is with you. I've heard that term before. It means the Governor General's staff. And the awards referred to in this section shall be conferred under the conditions prescribed by the Governor. So what we're doing there, Madam President, we have these honors, the Order of the Nation, National Hero, Order of the Bahamas, Order of Excellence, but we are, in doing this amendment, widening the scope of those who can receive national honors for their service in the public service and in civil society as well, medals of bravery. Section 5, Clause 5 amends Section 8 of the Principal Act, Madam President. It's just a simple replacement of the word shall, where it says in the Principal Act, it says that the awards shall be announced on the 10th of July every year, and actually conferred on Heroes Day, which is the second Monday in October. And what it is saying is that they may be conferred on those dates. And clause 5 goes on. The further amendment is that it allows for extenuating circumstances. So in the event that something prevents the awards from being announced on the July 10th and conferred on Heroes Day, the Act allows for alternate days to be used either for any force majeure or any other reason. It gives flexibility in the days that the awards may actually be announced and awarded. And Clause 6 of the amendment bill, Madam President, just gives it's a right of revocation. So, for example, if an award has been announced but not yet conferred, the Governor General might cancel the award. Or if an award has been given, a badge or medal has been given, if that person is convicted of an offense under the laws of the Bahamas, or if they behave in a manner that's inconsistent with the spirit and the purpose of the award, that can be revoked. And if it's revoked, it has to be returned to the secretary of the awards. And so those are the amendments that we're doing here today, Madam President. It's a continuation, as I said, in a journey where we build these national symbols, and by that we seek to build national identity, national pride in our institutions. And it's important that not only the politicians or those who have risen to high office, either political office or the clergy, et cetera, can aspire to these awards, but those individual Bahamians who are working diligently every day in every corner of this archipelago to make the Bahamas a better place. Of course, we know that their satisfaction is in their service, but this is always good when the nation can say thank you by the conferment of a token of appreciation and in expanding the range of honors that can be conferred under the National Honors Bill. That is what we're seeking to do, Madam President, to ensure that at some point we as a nation have a way, small as it is, to express our gratitude to those unsung nation builders throughout our country. And so with that, Madam President, I move for second reading of the National Honors Amendment Bill 2022.
Thank you, Senator Halkitis, for your contribution. Is there a seconder? The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Barry Griffin.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, as always, it is my distinct honor to rise in these chambers. And today it is my particular honor to be able to second the motion on the National Honors Amendment Bill on behalf of the Bahamian people. Last week, we had the pleasure of hosting their Royal Highnesses, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. Like the excellent hosts that we are, we graciously accommodated our guests, showing them the best of the Bahamas. By all accounts, they very much enjoyed their visit to the Bahamas. I would be remiss, however, if I didn't mention the national discourse that emanated from their visit. Because let's be frank, they weren't regular guests. In fact, constitutionally, they weren't guests at all. The Duke of Cambridge, Prince William, is second in line to the British throne. His grandmother is Queen Elizabeth of England, but here in the Bahamas, she is the Queen of the Bahamas. And he is, in fact, second in line to the throne of the Bahamas. So constitutionally, he is no visitor at all. He was coming home to his land. This fact that is certainly forgotten in everyday life here in the Bahamas was put on center stage, and a new generation began having conversations about nation building, the Bahamian identity, and the future of the Bahamian nation state. With this as a backdrop, it is most apt that we debate the National Honors Amendment Bill today, because this is part of that nation building exercise. National identity is so powerful. We fight for our country, we cheer for it, we draw our values from it. It's a big way many of us describe who we are. But when you think about it, national identity is a fairly new concept. For example, you think you know France, a place united by the French language and French ethnicity, but before the French Revolution, half of the people in modern-day France could not speak French. Their national identity was developed over the years after the French Revolution. National identity was the concept that language, race, and borders equaled a country. However, as democracy swept the world, national identity has taken on new forms. People now see their countries as extensions of themselves. This means that nations no longer get their identity from government or the king or the church, but rather from the people. And so with this in mind, we must think of our national honors system in that context. It is part of the statecraft and nation building, one of the tangible things through which we craft our national identity. When the substantive National Honors Act came into force, it was allowed to run in parallel with the British honor system, with the idea that in time, it was to replace the British honors system. We as a people must begin to place more value on our local systems. Foreign recognition is nice, but we must develop a sense that we are enough, that foreign validation is unnecessary. So I am happy to support this piece of legislation that gives our national honors system more teeth. Specifically, as Minister Alkeida said, it fleshes out the orders under the Act and states that there is a hierarchy to the system and the orders go from highest to lowest. Order of National Hero, which is the highest honor any person can get. Order of the Nation, which is conferred on Governor Generals and Prime Ministers. Order of the Bahamas, the highest order most citizens can get, and it carries with it the title, the Right Honorable. Order of Excellence, Order of Distinction, Order of Merit, and Order of Lignum Vitae. The amendment establishes that there will be distinguished service medals for citizens of the Bahamas in recognition of exceptional service in public service or civil society. This bill defines public service and includes government agencies, quasi-government departments, other units in government, public-private partnerships, and other entities wholly or partly owned by the government. There will be badges of honor for persons in civil society for their exceptional service, and the bill also defines civil society, which includes charities, charitable persons, and international organizations, amongst others. There will also be medals for bravery undertaken in the Bahamas by any person. And the distinguished service honors, badges of honors, and medals for bravery are what these amendments are meant to cure. The government never had the ability to make these recommendations because these categories did not exist in law. But by way of these amendments, we hope that more regular Bahamians who give great contribution to our national development can now be recognized. As a matter of note, the committee has already put a notice out to the public to take nominations for these awards. The forms are available on the government's website, and the deadline is April 8th, 2022. Applications can be submitted to the Cabinet Office. So I make a call to all citizens of the Bahamas to submit applications to recommend people in your communities who are providing outstanding service to the people of the Bahamas. This is all part of nation building and statecraft that we must engage to build a strong, unified Bahamas, a people with a common identity, a common purpose, and a common destiny. After this amendment, it is my hope that the government continues to move forward in creating these tangibles that tie Bahamians to our national identity. Before the PLP left office in 2017, then Minister Ken Dorset allocated land to the east of the Botanical Gardens at the top of the hill to be the location for a national park that would include monuments and busts and commemorations for our national heroes. While we were in opposition, I had the opportunity to view this site. Minister Fred Mitchell, who was always sure to impart historical and institutional knowledge to his younger colleagues, took some of us to the site, including myself and Senator Quinton Lightbourne. He told us the history of the National Honor System, how it came to be, what is intended for its future. He showed us the park and passed on the mantle, so to speak, in saying that it will be our generation's job to ensure that the park is there to commemorate our national heroes. It is my hope that this administration can move forward in that vein. So as we discuss national honors and further developing and deepening the Bahamian nation state, and we in real time craft what the Bahamian identity is, the royal visit has helped to put a lot of things into perspective. As a nation, we are grateful for the most gracious way that Queen Elizabeth has conducted herself as Queen of the Bahamas and has performed her ceremonial duties. Her life has been one of great honor and service, and we as a nation commend her for this. I had the opportunity to meet Queen Elizabeth in 2012 during her Diamond Jubilee. I was a law student in London, and I was selected as a top student in the UK at the time and had the honor of mooting before the Queen, which also came with the opportunity to sit with Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip. She was ever gracious and so very knowledgeable about the Bahamas. As a board member of the law school at King's College, University of London, my alma mater, I had the opportunity to meet with Princess Anne, the only daughter of Queen Elizabeth, who was the royal patron for kings. And now, just last week, as Vice President of the Senate, I had the distinct pleasure of welcoming Prince William and his wife Catherine to the Parliamentary grounds and to the Senate building. I would have you senators know that during their visit, the rain poured, and to give them a bit of respite from the rain, the Duke and Duchess took their retreat just upstairs here in the Senate building in our lunchroom. So now we can say that our lunchroom has been touched by royalty. I jest, but I say all that to say that the royal family performs their duties with distinction, and they should be commended for it. However, when we talk about the future of the Bahamas, we must separate personalities from the institution. Our current constitutional construct is a relic of a bygone era. Complete and true independence must be the final step in the arc of independence started by our forefathers. Complete sovereignty must be the goal. Complete responsibility for ourselves, subject only to the Almighty God, that is the only way forward. In my opinion, when it comes to moving away from constitutional ties with the British monarchy, I say we should just get on with it. In 2013, I was invited to present to the Constitutional Commission, then headed by Sean McWaney QC. I say now, as I said then to the committee, the Bahamas should move forward on the path to becoming a republic. Our current ties to the monarchy are largely ceremonial, with little economic, social, or any other gain for us as a nation. As a republic, we still could retain our membership in the Commonwealth, much as in the way Barbados has opted to, while getting rid of the administrative burdens that come with retaining the British monarch as our head of state. Some may be concerned about losing the benefit of leveraging the Privy Council as our final court. While I personally don't think we will lose investors because our judges of final appeal don't speak with a British accent, we can go the way of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago by retaining the Privy Council. And let's be clear, severing constitutional ties with the UK won't mean severing diplomatic relations with the UK. And as we know all too well, keeping those ties doesn't shelter us from blacklisting or help us in any significant way in meeting the development challenges that we face. Think of what it would do for our national psyche and for our national identity to see that all offices of power in our land are completely vested in Bahamians, people who look like you and me. Recognizing, and our good Attorney General, recognizing and appreciating our rich history does not mean that we have to be beholden to it. Historical nostalgia is fine, but it doesn't have to hold us to the vestiges of the past that do not serve our present or advance us toward the future that we want. Self-governance, majority rule, independence, they were the first and most important steps on our nation's journey toward complete sovereignty and self-determination. Almost 50 years later, I think we are mature enough to complete the job. With that in mind, I proudly second this National Honors Amendment Bill, one small but very important step towards realizing true Bahamian nationhood. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you for your contribution, Senator Barry Griffin. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the National Honors Act 2016. As many?
I said it. You said it for my brother.
The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Darren Henfield.
Thank you, Madam President. Let me begin by saying that it is so good to see you back in the chair. I know that you've been away for about 2 weeks, 2 sessions. Your deputy did a good job, but he is not you, right? I too would wish to extend condolences to Senator Duncombe on the passing of his sister. It is tough and difficult to lose loved ones. And please be assured that our prayers are with you. It would be remiss of me as leader of opposition business in this place not to also adopt and sanction, if I may, your statement here this morning and that of Senator Ellis. The Bahamas has a strong history of women who speak truth to power. They did it historically to cause women to be able to vote and to do so many other things in this country that we enjoy. I also want to recognize Vanessa Scott, who leads the women branch of the Free National Movement, who sits in the gallery as well, and others. Chanel Ferguson, a great athlete and former parliamentarian who is here with us today as well. You know, I join you, but it feels like it's deja vu all over again to hear your sentiments expressed so often as you do so powerfully and so truthfully from where you sit relative to the treatment of women, young women. As a father of 3 sons and an 80-year-old granddaughter, whom I love, you know, grandparents, when you get there, grandparents tend to have a little bit more love for their grandchildren than they do for, I always wonder why my mother allowed my sons to get away with so much, and my father did as well. And then I've come now to realize why. I don't know if it's because we're a little older and wiser, and things are not always as serious as they appear in the moment, but I could not imagine my granddaughter, who's 8 years old, at the age of 14, would be violated by no father or grandfather in this country can imagine that. He'd be violated by a 40-year-old who gets, as you rightly put it, a slap on the wrist, and is able to carry on, leaving that child scarred for the rest of her life. And in this instance, it's even worse because this thing has come to such a public furor. And so I agree that this is no time to be judging the victims. I want to commend, if I may, the spouse of the Prime Minister, who I believe spoke very truthfully, very deliberately, in a very measured manner as to her thoughts and the thoughts of the majority of Bahamians, particularly women, on this subject of abuse toward women and young girls. There's no time to blame the victim. The victim, the law is as it is because society believes that the victim ought not to be placed in a position to give consent at that age. That's the reason why the law is there, to protect the young people. I also want to publicly thank Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Hubert Alexander Ingram. You know, this book says that he was born in Pine Ridge, and he was. But we own him in Abaco. I mean, we own him in Abaco, particularly in Cooperstown. And this is the first of 3 volumes, I believe. I say what I mean, and I mean what I say. Prime Minister, I just want you to know that I have, yeah, that's my man. It's my family too. That I have your copy. That I have this copy. But I went ahead and I purchased a copy before I got this one because I wanted to begin reading. Who is this by? By the current Prime Minister. But I thank Prime Minister Davis. For this wonderful gift. And if you read the foreword, which is done by Sir Arthur Folks, young and aspiring politicians would do well to read this. You know, Sir Lyndon did a book which elucidated his career somewhat. Michael Creighton was the author. And whilst at sea, I read that book in about 2 days. Because at sea, you go on patrol, it's such a good read. It historically, and it taught me a lot of things about his vision and view of the Bahamas, and when he decided to push forward with the creation of a Royal Bahamas Defense Force, in which I served, what he saw at the time. And this book, which represents a compilation of the former Prime Minister's speeches at very critical points in our history and our historical development will serve some of you young politicians and hope to be policymakers quite well in the future if you would pay attention to some of the things it says. The more, it seemed to me, the more things change, the more they remain the same. What he's, I know for a fact that he's a monarchist. Most Abaconians are, you know. They won't go back into that history. I believe he's a monarchist. I really believe that. And so, yeah, that's why I don't know where this. Yeah, no. It's a discussion that has to be had in the Bahamas because I observed. I was in the garden myself with Senator Griffin and the leader of the opposition, and we welcomed and greeted their Royal Highnesses to that place. And Bahamians seem, quite happy to receive them. When I look at the pictures coming out of Abaco, and Her Royal Highness Princess Sarah eating the conch pistol, eating the conch pistol, and getting in the galleon and working that conch like a woman who knows how to handle the kitchen. That was quite impressive. It was quite impressive, and I understand from many of my relatives who were there that they took up a lot of time and just talking to people as normal people. So I was surprised to hear the Vice President of the Senate who met the royal family so many times, and even in this place, right, advocating that we look at how we divest ourselves of the monarchy. I say a little something about that. And does Madam President, yes, his personal opinion. And we understand that. And he doesn't sit in the cabinet, so his personal opinions can be shared actively and openly, unlike cabinet ministers who sit in that place can only share their personal views and opinions, should only, at that table in the confine of that safe space, unless you are outside speaking to policy. A word to the wise is sufficient, right? And so, Madam President, heroes, at least most of them with whom I've had the privilege to work and interact, they don't set out to become heroes, but they do what is necessary in the moment at great personal risk to themselves to preserve life. Arthur Ashe, the great Afro-American tennis player, he puts it this way. He said, "True heroism is remarkably sober, very undramatic. It is not the urge to surpass all others at whatever cost, but the urge to serve others at whatever cost." Madam President, the 1976 Wooding Commission of Trinidad and Tobago report asserted that, among other things, that independence must involve the creation of indigenous symbols of nationhood. And that's what these honors do for the Bahamas. They are ours. They are what Bahamians will refer to as V-Things. And so there is this constant refrain, though, of the dichotomy of these awards as they relate to the awards that we get from Her Majesty, I think twice a year, during her birthday and I think at Christmas time. Some of our leaders in the past refused to accept those awards, The Honorable Arthur D. Hanna was one who said that he didn't want that award. And some of our leaders today have not taken the new awards. And so that gives you a look at the microcosm of our society, at how we feel. Oh, at what, and so before, when we talk about leaving the Queen, who is head of state of the Bahamas constitutionally, when we talk about leaving that behind and leaving the monarchy and moving forward to a republic, whichever form of republic we choose to take, we must do so guardedly, I believe, because Bahamians need to be heard. When we did, Senator Griffin mentioned the Constitutional Commission led by QC Sean McQueenie. I worked as a junior along with now Justice Lauren Klein on the commission. we did quite extensive work on this in this report. 2013, we made it ready for July 2013, and we were asked to pose the question to the Bahamian people, and invariably, most of the letters that we got back indicated that Bahamians wanted to be, those who wrote, wanted to be rid of the monarchy. But most of the individuals that we spoke with when we canvassed all across this country, they had no real appetite for that. You basically had to prod them to see if you could get a response from them as it relates to relinquishing the crown or the monarchy and moving to a position where we'll have a president who will replace the governor general and our prime minister to do those ceremonial things as the governor general does, such as the case, I believe, in Haiti, does in Trinidad, and the prime minister and his cabinet continue the executive work of the country. And so very briefly, I want to say that this is a good thing that we do today in amending the National Honors Bill, because it, as indicated already, it broadens the scope of those who can become now eligible to be recognized. For far too long, only politicians and religious leaders and individuals of that genre were recognized by the powers that be for the granting of these awards. And it's you know, after sitting in the cabinet, you realize how politically heavy it is to do it. And so this act now introduces a means whereby unsung heroes, heroes among us, and I witnessed firsthand during the passage of Hurricane Dorian, personally in the eye of the storm in Abaco, so many unsung heroes like Emmett Bootle and Gilbert Davis, and I'm getting in trouble for calling names now. Superintendent Clark from the chief, I think he may be chief superintendent now from the police force, and others. David Henfield, I'll call your name, David, even though you're my little brother. I am in the chair now, so let them do it as they may. Who risked their lives saving people in the eye of the storm, who went over and beyond what they ought to have been led to do. Some of them nearly lost their lives. Emmett made trips and trips from Murphytown with his bus, just bringing loads and loads of people. Gilbert did the same thing with his truck. David went out into the storm and grabbed an immigrant family and rushed them into his home and into safety, who would have been surely lost. Bishop Silbert Mills, kept over, I think, 300 people in safety, including some that you would least likely suspect were in that place. When I went and I saw them, like, I leave that one right there. Bishop, you know what I mean. You know what I mean, Bishop Mills, you know, and kept them. And so heroes like these, it is also good that this amendment will recognize particularly NGOs. We had something like 1,500 NGOs that came to the Bahamas following the storm, and many of them, I have to call a couple names of them. Bahamian NGOs like Hands for Hunger, the One Illustra Foundation, who did a tremendous job, and Jose Andres from World Central Kitchen, who fed thousands of Bahamians a day. I think he's now in Ukraine doing the same thing. And who could forget an Abaco Samaritan's Purse? No one could forget Samaritan's Purse, who came in and did such a yeoman's job in assisting us in our time of distress. And so also I'd like to note that these badges and medals in the amendment section, section 4.5a, badges and medals, will also recognize distinguished service by public servants, who we'll debate some pension bills today, who get a bad rep. Most of the public service is not as bad as people say, and those of us who've had the privilege of working with them as ministers can tell you that we who sit in the seat of the executive can do very little without a good permanent secretary. You know, I will never forget Peter DeVoe Isaacs, never, who kept me off of shows. When you wanted to do certain things, he would say to you, Minister, this is not the way to do it. I understand the policy. Let me come back to you with a better way of achieving the policy. And so these distinguished service badges for exceptional service by members of civil society as well is very good. Huh? Oh, no. Oh, no. And when you begin to read Prime Minister Ingram's book, and you look at that section for the public service, I think it was around 2000. Yeah, no, that's not the ticket section. This is a huge book, and there are like three volumes to this, I think, so 2 more volumes to come. You will see him mention in his remarks to the House of Assembly some of those very productive senior public servants who made their mark to bring us to where we are. We now are left to take it a little bit further. That's something we'll talk about later. So, Madam President, I commend these National Honors Amendment Bill, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Senator. The Honorable Darren Henfield, as many. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Randy Roll.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Pleasant good afternoon to you and all of my colleagues. On this new day of a new week, I would like to wish you all a pleasant good afternoon. And again, I'm thankful and grateful to the Honorable Prime Minister for affording me the opportunity to stand in this August body and be able to make contributions on behalf of the national interests of the country. I am indeed grateful. Last week, the government debated the National Honors Bill 2022, and I immediately felt a sense of pride as I stand here today to pay homage to our heroes that gave service to this country, both past and present. Madam President, Minister of Foreign Affairs gave a detailed account of the British honors and the catalyst for the National Honors Amendment Bill 2022, which is fundamental to our nation. Madam President, I would like to acknowledge many persons, including 2 of our former prime ministers and, of course, our present prime minister. Former Prime Minister Perry Christie is a man of many talents, and by design, the Christie administration crafted the National Honors Bill to honor our many civic leaders and community builders, thereby allowing them to be both celebrated and memorialized. Madam President, out of the desire to ensure that Bahamians of all walks of life were recognized for their contributions in many areas, hence today, we stand here to speak on the national honors. Madam President, now for my next honorable mention, I see my good friend from North Abaco here. I wish to also give some credit where credit is due, and by no means it means anything else, but I would like to congratulate the former Prime Minister, Mr. Hubert Ingram, on the completion of his new book. And I see you have many copies here today. The book, I Say What I Mean and Mean What I Say. And those of you that grew up in my generation were often products of generational conditioning. There are many forms of conditioning. For me, it was political conditioning. Bottom line, PLP was good, FNM was bad. Therefore, during that time, in my much younger years, I was not a fan of the former Prime Minister, Hubert Ingram, and that's putting it mildly. However, years later, our paths crossed, and it was at that time that I gained a better appreciation for him as a leader and nation builder. And having served in foreign service, you understand that when he passed through Atlanta in his travels, we were able to communicate. And so therefore, I said we were able to build a communication and a relationship. And so, we understood each other a little bit more. His book chronicles his beliefs, his many trials, his tribulations, his rise, his falls, and his time in office. It was a very good read so far. Madam President, after reading his book, I realized that the days talking to and learning from our older generation is almost a thing of the past. The transfer of generational knowledge is almost extinct, and more of our local leaders and national heroes are to pen their memoirs so that their names and contributions are not forgotten. Hearing some of the stories, I also call on the government of today to assist wherever possible. And by saying that, what I simply mean is persons who would have made such great contributions and wanted to put it in writing, but never had the resources, never had the time, never had many other things. And so I call on, my administration so that for us to find a way to be able to help some of these. I remember Mr. Arlington Butler. He talked about writing a book, and I don't never think that happened. Certainly, I look forward to the day when former Prime Minister Christie also writes a book, and many others, because I think it's very important to our national development. Madam President, just as I conditioned my younger years, the young generation can also be conditioned. Earlier on in my remarks, I mentioned that there are many types of conditioning. Our youths can be conditioned to honor and respect our heroes and nation builders through education. Many of our younger generations don't know who the father of the nation is, much less his contributions to the Bahama land. The Burma Road riot and Sir Randolph Fox are almost folklore. In my belief that more of our local heroes are to be included in the curriculum of our schools from elementary level. Just as in the days change, so does time change. We must never fail to script of, we must never fail in the spirit of complacency and mediocrity. We ought to always strive to better ourselves. History, our history, is where it begins. Which leads me to the here and now. The Davis administration, I would like to congratulate them on our National Honors Amendment Bill 2022, which is now all-inclusive. Our nation builders and civic heroes deserve all the accolades. However, we must not forget our rising stars, the younger generation that is undoubtedly making an impact on society. We must give them their flowers whilst they are well. Madam President, I believe that we can collectively agree that the Davis administration is doing a phenomenal job at making connections and empowering our Bahamian people. Madam President, there are many times that our Prime Minister sat down with fellow Bahamians and connected with them on personal levels as stories were shared, as when I say stories, I mean history. Again, transfer of generational knowledge. You might be left in awe if you knew some of the unsung heroes that paved the way for many of us right here at this table. In the field of education, and I want to remember, I think I heard about a lady, Miss Cartwright. She is from Long Island, and she had done so much for that community. And the other day when I think the member for Long Island spoke in the House, I think he made it political because he mentioned everyone but except her. And so I want us to move past politics and recognize those for their contributions. Certainly in the field of tourism, Subaltern Battle and many others who would have given stellar service. Certainly, these are individuals too that, hopefully these medals and this honor system allows us to recognize. I want to pay homage to also the Honorable George Reach, and having been to Bimini the other day and seeing the name, the National Insurance Building named after the Honorable George Reach, I thank the member for Bimini and West Grand Bahama and the government of the Bahamas today for making that happen. Again, another individual that was a hero in that community, and now, for his family and for others to see, they can see it, the building, and ask, hey, who is George Reach? What was his contribution to the community? And so things like that, I think is super important in the area of social services. I remember I see my former cadet instructor, Elaine Sands, who is now doing very well in I think, parent planning. She was here the other day. Yeah, definitely. It was. And so I'm proud of persons such as that. And so I'm grateful and thankful. And so I stand here today in support of such amendments because it allows us to say thank you for those who would have done so much, to say thank you for their service to country. And I think that's important. So I stand here in full support of the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Roll, for your contribution. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Maxine Seymour. As many?
Please, thank you.
Senator the Honorable
Yes,
Michael
Madam President.
Halkitis.
Madam President, we just have two more speakers, Senator Seymour, and then, well, not two more, just Senator Seymour, and then I will wrap up. And then we propose to deal with the pension bills, which it appears we have agreement on, so that should not be long. And so I would propose, Madam President, that we work through the lunch hour, and we should hopefully be done before 2 o'clock. And so I would just like to move that the business of the Senate do continue beyond 1 p.m.
Is there a seconder? Second. It has been moved and second that the business of the Senate continue beyond 1 p.m. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried and the business of the Senate will continue beyond 1 p.m. Senators, I ask that when a senator is speaking, if we can please stop the talk around the table because it's disturbing to the chair and also to the senator who's on the floor. We don't want to miss any of the contributions. As many, the chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Maxine Seymour.
Thank you, Madam President. So much has happened since we last met. In fact, so much happens often in our country and around the world. Most recently, as would have been noted, we entertained the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge during a royal visit in honor of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. Of course, we all knew when they were coming, and so we did everything to prepare the roads, prepare the parks, prepare the signage, and everyone got all pretty and smiled. And we really made sure that our country was in order. And it was a team effort across ministries. Madam President, I would like to take this opportunity to note that another royal visit is pending. The challenge is that this time we don't know when it's going to be. And so we will not have the opportunity to prepare with such a definitive date in mind. And that is why it's important to be also ready. And the difference is that when this particular royal comes, he plans to take others back with him. The others came on that jet, and whoever came on that jet is who went back on that jet. But this particular royal plans to take others with him. So I want to encourage all of us to be prepared so that when that visit occurs, that we will be one of the ones to be able to go back to his kingdom along with him. And just remember, we don't know when it is. And so we have to prepare. Madam President, I am happy to stand in this chamber to contribute on the National Honors Amendment Bill 2022, a bill for an act to amend the National Honors Act 2016. The National Honors Act 2016 was drafted by the former administration headed by Prime Minister Christie. And of course, this is something that has been in the making and implemented for at least 2 decades in our country, with former Prime Minister Ingram as well having presented to Cabinet in 2001 a draft National Heroes and National Honors Bill. So no doubt, we all agree that this is something that is necessary, and that is to pay honor where it is due, and to recognize the Bahamians who serve our country and serve our country selflessly and continuously to make it better in our communities across the Commonwealth. It's very similar to Jamaica, who introduced their national honors in 1969, and Barbados, who followed in 1980. You see, Madam President, governments are continuous. And so when the last administration came to office, right away, it worked hard to take the National Honors Act of 2016 and the National Honors Regulations of 2017 and made them one of the first and primary legislative priorities. And so we would have honored so many persons over time, and there are just really too many to name. But when we hear the names, we're all familiar with them and their contribution, and that's names like Sir Arthur Folkes and former Deputy Prime Minister Cynthia Pratt, Anita Bernard and Eileen Cairns, and the Dr. Merceline Dow Regis and Dr. Sandra Dean Pattersons of our country, and Reverend Sebastian Campbell, Pauline Davis Thompson, the Right Honorable Janet Bostwick, Dr. Miles Monroe, and Mrs. Patricia Bazar, just to name a few. And so we see that it's important to pause and recognize persons who add value to our country. And these amendments seek to broaden the scope of the persons that we're able to recognize, because ordinary people do extraordinary things. And so heroes shouldn't be confined to a particular group of people, as we've noted here. It should be able to include the persons who house persons in their homes during a catastrophic storm, or who risk their lives in an attempt to save the lives of others. And so these are people who we want to represent in civil society and in the public service. And this particular amendment allows for us to do so in more broader terms. And so, Madam President, this particular amendment also recognizes that sometimes good people do bad things. And when that happens, we can't have them going around with badges of honor and being listed as heroes among us if, for whatever odd reason, they decide to go rogue on us. And so it allows for the revocation of badges and medals when that kind of thing happens, which is necessary, which hopefully we will not have to ever go to. But if we do, then it would be allowed for in these amendments. Madam President, it is so easy to focus on the bad things that are happening in our society. But I have to say that there are still good things happening among us. And yes, Madam President, there are absolutely bus drivers who molest little girls who are passengers on their bus. But there are also bus drivers like Johnny, who's been driving for at least 30 plus years, who drove my goddaughter to Claridge Primary 25 years ago and drove her siblings and cousins before her to the same school on that route. And I haven't heard in 30 plus years of anything other than safety and him making sure that he follows the law, drives at a certain speed, and he looks out for his passengers. He knows his passengers by name. He knows where to expect them, when to expect them, and he looks out to them and he gets them home safely. And that's Johnny Monpetit. And he's only one of so many other bus drivers, Madam President, who do well by our children, who make sure that our children get where they're going without any interruption. And so I don't want us, in raising awareness and in making sure that we do what we have to do to create stiffer penalties and to make sure that the monsters in our society pay for what they do. I don't want us to overshadow the good people in our society who are in the majority in our society, who are doing good things, who are looking out, who are youth leaders, who are counseling and advising 14-year-olds, and who are helping them chart their way to a brighter and more promising future. Madam President, yesterday I had the honor, of course, I would have liked to be there in person, but I was there virtually thanks to technology. And I had the honor and privilege of sitting into UWI School of Clinical Medicine and Research, their physicians reception that they hosted yesterday at Bahamar, postgraduate physician reception. And persons who are already doctors, which in my mind is something that you already accomplish. But they were already doctors, but they decided to go a step further and take a few years and focus on certain specialties. And so yesterday, we had 39 persons graduate from various specialties in medicine who are now equipped to provide improved healthcare services to our Bahamian citizens and residents in our country. Among them, of course, was one of my best friends from high school who delivered remarks on behalf of the emergency medicine physicians, Dr. Shimon Ferguson Charlton. And I am proud of her and of the other 38 doctors, there's 39 in total, who would have graduated yesterday during that ceremony. And so these are heroes who will hopefully be recognized based on this amendment in years to come. And so I salute those 39 doctors, Madam President, who would have graduated from their postgraduate studies yesterday. Madam President, April is Child Protection Month. And there are persons who work to protect our children who do a stellar job. Persons from the units, like the nurses from the SCAN unit, Suspected Child Abuse and Neglect unit, who work tirelessly with the Ministry of Health and CDU and so many other agencies to get children to safety. And there are success stories of children who they managed to rescue, who they managed to provide intervention for and intercept what's going on in their life that's negative, and stories of good people who turn it around and children who end up to grow up and have families and live whole lives. And so as we recognize Child Protection Month this month, of course, we need to protect our children all year round, 12 months of the year. But we do pause in April to recognize in particular the emphasis we place on protecting our children. And as we've said, and I adopt your statement as well as that of my Honorable Senator Barnett Ellis, and we have to do more to protect our children and the most vulnerable among us, whether that's women, children, persons with disabilities. We have to be the voices for persons whose voices may not be able to be amplified as loudly as they can, based on whatever it may be. And so we have to continue to push for their rights. And we have to bring changes to our law, like you would have said. Madam President, is also Autism Awareness Month, and autism affects so many families. But as we look at this National Honors Bill and we are embracing more of civil society in it, then hopefully in time to come, the persons who work with parents who find themselves with awesome children, not knowing what to do and how to function, organizations like REACH, people who try to help, whether it's with speech therapy and other forms of therapy, to really help these children have a whole life, to be able to function because they're awesome children. And so we want to be able to recognize persons like that in the future who make a difference, who add value to our society, who seek to give, to pour into young lives and not necessarily to take away. Madam President, there's so much going on, but that didn't stop 29-year-old Raquel Forbes from becoming the first certified female dragline operator, not in our country, but in the entire Caribbean, as she continues to work at Bahama Rock. And these are things that we hear and that we need to be proud of and to pause to celebrate and to speak about and to put in the charts and in the LED lights and on the front pages and to discuss and to argue about and to be thrown a political football about some of the positive things sometimes I think get overlooked by everything else that's happening. Like I'm scrolling Facebook yesterday and I see that our very own Senator Hanfield's father, Bishop Hanfield, celebrated an 87th birthday, Madam President. And I'll tell you, And I'll tell you, he doesn't look 87 at all. He doesn't look 87 at all, at all, at all. And so there's still a lot of good in our country that's happening. Madam President, April is here. And very soon we have 36 talented swimmers who are going to be heading to Barbados and who hopefully will be able to bring us back the Carifta Gold in swimming. And these... And so, Madam President, as time goes on, the coaches who drop home and pick up and who stay at the pool long hours and who get barely a stipend, and I know because my husband's a phys ed teacher and he coaches, and so they get a stipend, okay? And these are the people that in a bill like this, in the future, we'll be able to recognize, we'll be able to memorialize, we'll be able to celebrate because they do these things selflessly. They pour themselves into young people. They pour themselves into our future generation because they see the potential in them. They want to help them move forward. They see the talent, they see the gifts, and they have to nurture those gifts and talents. And so again, these amendments allow us in the future to be able to celebrate them. And in April, we have 55 young people who are heading to Jamaica, Madam President. Among them, my very own nephew, who in the long jump and 100-meter under 20 boys will hopefully compete and bring back golds. And so, Madam President, there is good in our country. There are people who are doing good in our country. There are young people who are focused, who are diligent, who are on their path in order to be what it is that they feel that God has called them to be. And so we have to encourage them, Madam President. And so these amendments to this National Honors Amendment Bill, of course, to the National Honors Act of 2016, seeks to do all of that. It seeks to broaden who it is we're able to honor and to recognize. It seeks to give badges and medals and to add the word society. So that's a distinguished group of people, Madam President, that we can all only aspire to belong to. And just how we recognize that there are people who we need to honor, who are currently existing, we have to recognize that there are also people all around us who are on their path to becoming heroes. And I hope that with these amendments, that number one, we will not look at heroes as just being a certain age range, because there are young heroes who start charitable organizations, they try to raise funds, they do things. And so I hope that this bill will not limit who gets an honor to persons who are all, I was going to use a term, but that may feel offensive, but who are older. You know, I hope that we will recognize some younger persons as well, because there are younger heroes among us. And the other thing is that I hope that we will take a more archipelagic approach when it comes to this particular bill and its amendments, because there aren't just heroes in New Providence, Madam President. There are heroes throughout our archipelago on all of the islands, and we need to celebrate them. And I like the timing for it, announcing it on Independence and awarding it on National Heroes. And so, you know, there's a certain sense of pride that's enhanced by all the fireworks and the flags and the police and defense force bands and everything else. The Governor General, you know, if we still have it at that point, Mr. Vice President. But there's a certain sense of pride that comes with those occasions, right? And so we announce the heroes on those dates. We award the heroes on National Heroes Day. And so it's so much more glorified, which is what they deserve. And they deserve that, Madam President, whether or not they are bus drivers, or whether or not they work with charitable organizations, or whether or not they rise to the highest office, whether that's Prime Minister or Governor General or whoever it may be. We have to recognize good people in our country and ordinary people who are doing extraordinary things when we talk about honoring persons within our community. And so, Madam President, I support the amendment to the National Honors Amendment Bill 2022, which is a bill for an act to amend the National Honors Act 2016. And I look forward to saluting the heroes among us in our country as the nominations come to a close soon. I look forward to us naming our newest group and being able to celebrate them in a big way, especially as we approach our 50th anniversary of independence. So I fully support these amendments. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you for your contribution, Senator Maxine Seymour. As many?
Madam President, just to wrap up, I would just like to thank all senators for their contribution. And as we can see from the contribution, there's unanimous support for the amendments to basically broaden the scope of national awards that can be given. And so, Madam President, thank all senators for their contribution. And I move that the question is put.
It has been moved and second that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the National Honors Act 2016. As many? As many as are in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to amend the National Honors Act 2016.
For the second reading of bills.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Madam President, there are 4 of the what we call the private pension bills that I would seek to move all at the same time. The side opposite.
One at a time.
One at a time, yes.
Debate all together.
Yes, we'll debate all. I'll move each one, and we'll debate all of them together. And I want to once again thank the side opposite for their concurrence in us debating the Telus Bethel Pension Bill 2022, have it introduced and also dealt with at the second reading stage in the same day. And so we have before us, Madam President, we have pension bills for the Telus Bethel Pension Bill. We have the Japheth Edison Delaveau Pension Bill 2022. We have the Raymond Mackey Pension Bill 2022. And we have the Mary Mitchell Pensions Bill 2022. And in effect, Madam President, the Pensions Act is Pensions Act of the Bahamas is very specific in who is eligible for pension, how that pension is calculated, the years of service, etc. And there is a provision where service can be bridged. I think that period is 2 years. And in these cases, for whatever reason, there has been a break in service in most of them. And in the case of Mr. Bethel, I think he was transferred from the Defense Force, and so that affected his pension eligibility. And so that is what we are here trying to resolve today. And so, Madam President, in the Telus Bethel Pension Bill case, this bill seeks to provide for the grant of a pension to Telus Bethel for his years of service in the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, as if he had served for the period of time stipulated in Section 5A B of the Pensions Act, thus awarding him the pension he would have been entitled to had he not been transferred to the public service. And in the case of Japheth Edison Delaveau, Madam President, this bill, we want to empower those computing the period of service in respect of which Japheth Edison Delaveau may be granted a pension or gratuity under this act to take into account the initial period served in the public service from 1st of June 1947 to the 21st of August 1956, notwithstanding that Section 24 of the Pensions Act provides that the service in respect of which a pension or gratuity may be granted under this act must be unbroken. Section 24 of the Pensions Act says that your service must be unbroken, and what we are seeking to do here is to bridge that period from 1947 to 1956. In the case of Raymond Mackey, Madam President, we want to empower those computing the period of service in respect of which Raymond Mackey may be granted a pension or gratuity under this act to take into account the initial period served in a public service from 7th of July 1965 to 7th of July 1968. And in the case of Mary Mitchell, there are two periods in the case of Mrs. Mitchell that we are bridging, 2 periods of employment in the public service, and we want to make it one continuous period for the purpose of calculating the pension. And that period is those periods between 17th November 1975 to 29th February 1988, and then for those to be continuous with the period beginning 3rd of September 1990. And I think what this speaks to, Madam President, this is an issue that comes up from time to time where we have these extenuating circumstances, and we want to ensure that persons who would have taken a break for whatever reason from the public service but then continue their service, they might be eligible for the pensions. I think this speaks to the need and a matter that we should be taking up soon of pension reform, so that in a case such as this, we don't have to come to Parliament in these individual cases, Madam President, because for matters of personal privacy, etc. I mean, we want to do it, but we would like to, don't like to bring people's names into debates. So, Madam President, for the purpose of just the second reading and for the contribution of senators, I will just move for second reading and committal of the Telus Bethel pension bill. If I may, I'll move for second reading of and committal of the Telus Bethel pension bill, if I may obtain a second. And then senators, I propose that senators who want to make a contribution can make a global contribution, so to speak, and then I will move the others individually so that we can move to the committee stage. So I move second reading and committal of the Telus Bethel pension bill.
Is there a seconder?
Madam President, I stand to second the motion by fix that problem. So the continuing issue is that that act was not retrospective. So there's a small group of persons who fall outside of that act. And the thought is that this group of bills today would be fixing the category of those persons, and this would be the last of that batch. So, Madam President, with that said, I second the motion.
Thank you, Senator Barry Griffin. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to provide for a pension for Telus Bethel, retired Commodore of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. as many.
Madam President, welcome back. Senator Duncombe, my heartfelt condolences. Yeah, in the interest of time, I decided not to speak twice, but I do stand in support of the pension amendment bill. I do have one or two fundamental questions, I think, in the public interest. First of all would be, is it possible to indicate a timeline you think the amendment to the Pension Act may come about? Okay, good. The reason why I asked that because the issue here of abridgment has been something that I have sorted for a few persons who, from their experience, was deemed necessary. One of them is Reverend Leon Graham in Pinewood, and I was not able to get that sorted out. And I told him to pay attention to this debate because whatever doorway or pathway that exists is the pathway that he needs to continue to push his quest for that. I consider bills like this civil justice because there are many times mitigating circumstances that cause persons to not be able to benefit from things that they were traditionally been entitled to. And I consider this very, very appropriate. I'm glad, as indicated by Senator Arquittis, that the pension bill will remove the processes of having to come into an open forum like this to debate that. And it's in that vein, and that's why I asked in the first instance the timeline, what changes the tenor of my debate in this regard. Because if the amendment to the Pension Act does exactly as was stated by Senator Arquittis, then I think Senator Reverend Graham and the others who are seeking that justice, even in their old age, then they have hope, and hope within a very reasonable time. Because I moved away, hopefully this year, okay, that's within reason. Because I moved away in the interest of time from speaking to all the, both of the bills that was presented forward, I do also want to acknowledge in the light of current event and to encourage those social activists with or without title who have been making a change, and also to encourage what I call the army of God, the church and its members, to play more, to step up and play more of an active role in their social interventions. They have done a lot, not only through the pandemic, but historically. But where we are socially, with the murder, with the incidence of sexual violence, and all the other social ills, we have a great need for these people to stand up in their heroic spirit and to make the difference that we need in this country. I don't believe everything is just a matter of government. I do believe, however, that we all have a role to play, and that is very, very critical. One of the things that we fail to look at, and I start to hear it more in the social media, is the impact of even the mental illness that occur and the PTSD that happens with persons who would have suffered abuse, rape, and I do wholeheartedly support your opening statement, Madam President, in this country. I remember as a young man, would you believe it today, as a young man, not a young man, a young boy, very, very small, hearing adults in my family talking about how, and they weren't talking maliciously, it was on the eve, it was at that time when the incident happened, of a relative who would have gotten sexually assaulted. And would you believe that still lingers on my mind even today? And when I say a little boy, I can't remember my age, but I know I probably wasn't barely as high as this table, but I clearly remember that. because I felt the pain that I heard throughout that room. And I heard the name of the person. And to this day, I see that person walking down the street and it always floods back. And I was not even a direct victim. I know of many persons who would have gone on because of their silence and gotten married, and homes have been destroyed by a mysterious virus that they did not know what it was, and that virus was the pain of silence that a wife carried, or even men from sexual abuse and violence. And we need to, as a society, to be able to pay closer attention to these things and these symptoms. We need not wait until somebody comes online and social media and desperation and voicing their thoughts and their opinions, or after somebody would have probably already taken their life, and then we get into the coulda, woulda, shoulda aspects. We really need to do our best to be our brother's keeper. We all must be accountable. One thing I like about the word of God is that judgment begins at the house of the Lord. And I would like to see it to the point that we all actually take not just a public stance, but a wholehearted stance against not just the outrage that we see happen from time to time, and sometimes it leads us away with the next social issue, but an internal conscious attitude and disposition that our children will be safe around us, our friends and women, everyone will be safe around us in an environment where no means no. And I don't even mean no from just the words, no from the look. I know of situations where women who work in clubs and nightclubs, and they speak to me about how they feel. And sometimes, even though they hadn't been touched, many of them feel like they have been molested because how men and patrons of these clubs treat them and talk to them over and over and over again. And they sit down, we have these conversations. I've worked in community building longer than I care to remember. I remember starting in community policing when George Mackey was still here. And from then on, I gave 20 years of my life working in community policing. No fanfare, no nothing. We get a good understanding of things that used to be going on. We set up many organizations throughout. I remember many of the times where you would have had police officers, they would come and they would ask you to counsel these victims. In some instances, even the families tip them hard. I've been in situations where I'm outside the crisis center late in the night with a mom with a daughter who's been on a job that she needed so badly, and the boss convinced her, okay, we gotta go get something from my house. You know, and the guys of work and picking up stuff and do what they had to do, then pressure her as it relate to her job, and then because he's connected, threaten that, you know, nothing gonna happen for you here, there, and everywhere. And you've seen these things that devastate people around. I deal also with a lot of kids, and they're very, very trusting. And I have my own kids, my own children, you know, over 20 now, they're still children to you in your heart. And could imagine someone bringing harm to them. I remember just recently when somebody tried to accost my son with a machete for no reason. We were supposed to be dressed and go into a formal function. And we could have heard, he called his mom phone, I could hear him on the other end of the line, and I could hear the person carrying on. Well, we made it from wherever we was to him in just a couple of minutes. And I think maybe that's the first time my son actually even see me cry. It hurts my heart even thinking about it. And it took the grace of God to stop me from just ripping that fat. Just the thought that you're going to take a cutlass and you think you could chop my son up because you think because of something you did that he scraped your vehicle. We're in the Easter season, and Christ died vicariously for all of us. And we need to learn to live vicariously for each other. We need to learn to fight the battles on our doorstep. If I could stop this rapist at Reuben's door, they won't end up to send the Pistor's daughter house. We need to be proud whistleblowers. Because pedophilia and these other type things, they become systemic and systematic. And it becomes habitual every time the person gets away or feel that they get away with something, you increase the odds of somebody else paying the price. We need to ensure that people can give evidence and we can protect our victim. We need to ensure that people who go up and perjure themselves don't just walk out of court, they should be punished. Our children, our people, our environment needs to be safe. We all need to, from governments to church to people in our houses, need to ensure that we will take a position that we will not tolerate these kind of actions among us, no matter how we feel with the people, no matter how embarrassed we may be because of our associations with them. These things cannot continue to happen. See, there's something the Bible says, when you do that at the least, you put a millstone around your neck. And I don't want a millstone around the Commonwealth of the Bahamas because we as a people are expressing outrage, but yet we're still cloaking these very same things that grieve us over and over again and again. It grieved me to this day right here in any society, and I've even been inherited in government. And I see you can't destroy people's reputation. This is the sensitive thing about it. But when charges are given and even stated and things are out there, we need to find a way to address these things across the board. Young ladies are walking around and have been walking around for years. I've been seeing it from time all around. They wear certain uniforms. I wouldn't describe it. And they're underage teenagers pregnant. But I'm certain the record of the courthouses does not reflect the volume of these young ladies pregnant and the volume of persons being presented before the courts. So somewhere along the line, there seems to be some sort of tacit approval until you see one comes into the paper. Then we get all outraged, but we are desensitized to the ones that's happening all around. We are talking about marital rape, but what about parental prostitution? When parents also are out there knowing what their child is doing. Back in the days, many of us, our parents, if we come home with the wrong thing, we say, boy, where you get that from? Take that back wherever you get it from. But now we've been seeing and hearing about cases whereas because you get money, you can have my child. We need to be strong in our stance, consistent and not hypocritical in our stance against any form of pedophilia. Our children must be safe. And if they aren't safe, you know what's going to happen? It's going to be a generational shift where we have deficient adults that's going to come up, and it's going to be the death of our society. These are very trying times. Very, very trying times. And I hope when the amendments are made that we look at it and we come at it as strong as possible, move all the ambiguities and the things that could cause misinterpretations in the laws and in our statutes. But it's not just the law. From a moral position, we have to take the stance. I don't care if it's a pastor. I don't care if it's a government minister. I don't care if it's a prime minister. I don't care if it's a peanut boy or a jitney driver. We have to get to this point where it is seen and demonstrated. I've even heard stories of people accusing people in government. That should not stand. If someone accuses you falsely, especially of something like that, address it. Put them behind bars. Or if it's right, then put you behind bars. But our children must be safe across the board. It's the time that tries been sold, you know. I'm distancing out of my mind in many cases because you'd be surprised at how many people you counsel with. Cousins raping cousins. Brothers rape sisters. Boys being set up by pedophile and poached and cultivated. Let me tell you what I mean by cultivated. They go watch the boy, some smart, they waiting for age of consent. And they go bait the boy, treat him good and everything else, and get him acclimatized. They ain't touching him, But when that 18th birthday hit, they wait till they do to the point. Maybe because I'm thinking about individuals in my mind now. But when that age of consent hit, they would have already all nurtured that child and cultivated that child into their sexual behavior. This is what we're seeing in our society. I remember when Cynthia Mother Pratt was Minister of National Security. And a report was given out at the level of prostitutions in our high schools. In our schools, I think, if I'm remembering correct, even down as low, down into some of our junior high schools and lower, where girls were doing these things and getting these different stuff. So this is not a new situation in our society, but it grows like a mole as long as we keep it in darkness. And we must all stand up and ensure that these things have no breathing room whatsoever, period. And that's my statement. My daughter stand up for me in college, and she was an advocate against rape. I've been college recruiting for a number of years, and I stopped about 15 years ago. And I know of young men who've been behemoth young men off to college and being recruited and being sexually molested. And when they come back and they come into position of power, we have defective people. And some of them have adopted lifestyles, not because they chose to, but because they were manipulated into something and they were forced into it sufficiently till they become accustomed to it, then they feel trapped and then they start living it. Then some get married to try to get out of it, then have to break up their marriage because at the end of the day, they're all confused because we don't pay attention to the mental health and conditioning of people in our society, man. And this really has to stop. We got to be bold enough. You see, we go on Facebook and we have to be bold enough to put these things before the court and to ensure that we can address it. Our senior citizens are being raped. So this is a very serious problem, and it's not just government. Churches need to design now specific programs to protect and to isolate and to find these things out and to bring them all to head. And somehow we got to do it, and we got to find a way to give and do it swift justice. I'm only going to say this one point because, and I'm not getting into anything that Brother Wayne Monroe said. In the context of swift justice, I'll take this one point out of that. Because this one point I think is true. Because when the persons go to court and you're at this age and too much time has passed, you degrade and you dilute and you ruin and the opportunity for that proper justice to be had, because over a period of time, people trying to get into their new lives, something happened and I don't want to be hearing it, I'm an 18, I'm trying to deny it, and guess what happens? Somebody gets scot-free. There should be some unique procedure that allows things such as this to move swiftly enough so I can get swiftly adjudicated so that person can get on into their lives, not when after I would have been raped or sexually assaulted and went through the trauma of this and went through the pleading, and then it takes 7 years. And by 7 years of my struggle, now I'm called to go before the courts and relive this tragedy. That in itself is an injustice, notwithstanding the reality of our backlogs and everything else. Certain categories of crime, we must find a way to ensure that they are dealt with swiftly while things are fresh so that the persons can get on with their lives as quickly as possible. Another question I wanted to put and I wanted to ask and maybe the Attorney General can help me with this. Because in his previous contribution into this place, the Honorable Senator said something that raised a couple of questions. I remember when we put in the DPP, when we made a law to make the DPP independent. And I remember the response, well, it's not independent because they work for you. You see? But the purpose of making the DPP independent was to ensure that at least if a directive was given, it is made discoverable. So if there's a question or query to it, then you could adjust it. So it opened the door. And that came about as a result of the nully of the gun situation when the former AG was off island. They had the acting or deputy AG acting in place, and he took the action to nully it that caused public outrage and all kind of accusations. So this was put in place to try to limit those things. But I wanted to ask the AG a question, which could be really a simple yes or no question, because it was interesting that on when was it that the new acting deputy director of public prosecution, he was actually sworn in on March 11th. Yeah, he was sworn in on March 11th. The new acting deputy director of public prosecution was sworn in on March 11th. And then on March 16th, we had Kendra Dorset's case got nullied. And to avoid the appearance of anything, you see what I'm saying? The point is, if people look at it and say, okay, hey, this almost like the same thing. This one gone, this one nully. I say, man, come on. You know, you said that the deputy director of prosecution is now on voluntary vacation leave, which means now that he will be replaced. Oh, 26 weeks? Oh, wow. So he's taking his 26 weeks vacation. Okay, that's wonderful. And then another one that came to mind in your presentation, I thought it was interesting too, when you were speaking about the former administration, you were talking about matters as it relate to things that were not budgeted. And one of the things, and I commend you on this, one of the things that was not budgeted was covering the legal judgment fees, which was $17.7 million that was a rare. And I think that's good because the government bad with paying people. And as far as I'm concerned, that's a crime too. All right. And let me explain that in the context of what Madam President said. The young lady who committed suicide, if you listen to her voice, her video on Facebook, had a concern for $20. You remember the day? $20. She couldn't find somebody who can give her $20. So when you withhold payment from people, you are destroying people's lives. Period. And quite frankly, some of those things they got to pay as the government anyway. So it is a crime, and it sends a bad signal to everybody else. The same way it sends a bad signal to private employers when government don't pay workers, when if persons get laid off. If you're going to lay somebody off, do what the private people do. They call you in on a Friday. Here's the check. Give me my key. You're gone. But the government can ask you, boom, and then sit back, say, man, you can sue me when you're ready. I ain't got a problem with that. Destroy somebody's lives and don't even pay off what is due. That's an injustice. But the question that arises out of this and what made it so interesting was, in the $17.7 million that the AG actually mentioned, out of that he said the financial secretary and the cabinet approved an emergency supplemental budget of $2 million, which was sent to the AG office to address those same arrests. And I like the fact that you committed that with the help of your cabinet. Yes, you're right. But that your intention is to have the $17.7 million paid off by the new budget. That's your goal, exactly said goal, with the help of cabinet and everything else. But what became a red flag is, as soon as the $2.2 million that was quickly transferred over to the AG office to pay judgments against the court, many of which you said were long overdue, many, many years. So there are people who are waiting for all kinds of years. As soon as I get done, next thing you know, here at the paper, Shane Gibson King settles. Undisclosed amount, then it came out, it was 2-something million amount. And the impression that is now circulating, and this is important because we know of a lot of people who had judgment before. Some people saying, I see they're gonna do this, they're gonna give Shane a shingle, and they can ignore me, they can ignore that, they will do all so on and so forth. Is there a priority in terms of how the AG office seeks to address these things? Now, for me, if you're gonna do it at a certain point, is it gonna be like the most urgent ones that was behind? Thank you, please.
Yeah, no problem, no problem.
Chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Ryan Pinder.
Thank you. Just to be clear, right, just to be clear, none of the money requested from the Attorney General's office to satisfy the 17.7 million of age settlements had anything to do with any settlement of Shane Gibson. Let's just be clear on that. And further, I'll expand on that a little bit more. In fact, the Attorney General's office is not the responsible party for paying that settlement. That would be the Ministry of Finance. So when you ask if it's if the allocation out of the Attorney General's office is there to satisfy a Shane Gibson settlement, it's not, because it's not the obligation of the Attorney General's office. But having said that, all of the $17.7 million of judgments are accrued judgments on the books from before September 16th, 2021 that are being satisfied. Some going way back, multiple administrations, way back. And to your point, I find it inequitable that we treat our people like that. You won't even, this doesn't even have to do with property acquisitions that have accrued decades and decades and decades, and now interest and costs are higher than what the acquisition value would have been back then, right? You take people's land and you say, it's my land now, I'm the government's for the public interest, and you don't pay them, and you wait 10 years to let them draw it through the courts just to reach an evaluation. It's a ludicrous practice. For generations in this country, it is a ludicrous practice, right? But it is a new day now, and we are satisfying those. We do have a cabinet conclusion on property acquisition matters as well. And that cabinet conclusion is we will create a comprehensive file to demonstrate amounts actually owed and doing, not questionable cases, firm cases, present it to the Ministry of Finance, and the Ministry of Finance will then subsequently cut the appropriate check to satisfy those one by one, so we have the proper assurances these are proper claims, and we systematically go through them and address them. Not only that, I can't here, as the Attorney General, tell you the aggregate value of land acquisitions, because you know what? Some of them are no OPM, some of them are no AG, some of them are sitting on a desk in lands and surveys. If it's PHA property, it may be sitting on the desk of the PHA. And it is a system of governance that, regardless of political affiliation, must be remedied. Must be remedied. Because all it does is drag the Bahamian people along. You take their things and you don't even give them $1 to take back. So I just wanted to clarify all of that. There's nothing nefarious in the whole Shane Gibson matter. There is nothing nefarious in the noli of Ken Dorset. I didn't make that decision. The prosecutor made that decision. The prosecutor made that decision because the key witness in the case refused to testify without being paid. And this government does not pay for testimony. That's not true. Get on your feet and say it, and I may have to prove you wrong. But we're not doing that. And so there's nothing nefarious there of any decisions made by any person. Thank you.
Yeah. See, no, they say, and this is why it is so. See, sometimes we say things, and when we say it to each other, and not realizing that the things that we say needs to reach the public. And that's why, in many instances, I like to challenge the AG, because I want him to explain it to people. Because the point that I was also going to bring up, and I'm glad you bring to it, was the concern from Charles Sanders Highway, for example. By the time they run that highway, people ain't get straight yet. And so this is why, and this is government. It's criminal when the government does that. and do it to your own people. I will even borrow something out of your speech for the throne. You can pay the foreign lawyer on court cases, but you ain't gonna deal with the public people here. And the governments must set the supreme example. I don't care who it is, See, when y'all, I mean government. When y'all, the government, go in your back room and you can decide, because it don't just happen when somebody walk to work, because the minister or the person in a boss unto himself that I can fire Senator Pinder. When y'all done make up your mind how much people you can fire, how hard is it? To simply say, okay, we got the name, we can do the little research back, even if we got to keep them on the job for another week. And we can say, okay, now we're terminating you for whatever cause, and if you have a problem here, you can take it to court, but here is your vacation, here is what is due to you, that's the least you can do to your Bahamian citizens. Then we have a problem when these hotels won't close down and won't go run off, or they want to shut down something and don't want to pay the civil servants, or don't want to pay their employees or the hotel workers, or in the private sector when bosses literally do what government has been doing, say, okay, go sue me, because you can go to, the tribunal, which seem not to have any teeth. And then you leave people suffering and in anguish, and guess what that frustration do? Breed a myriad different type of things, from suicide, stress, prostitution. You'd be surprised to know how many people are on their last breath because they're waiting on something that they're hoping for. And so this is something that I think is critical, because I remember, and I listened, that Prime Minister actually envisioned dealing with outstanding legal matters. I think earlier, and probably within the first month of October, I heard something about it. And I said in my mind, that's why I wanted to bring this up, because this is an important social thing. Because there are people who've been waiting. There have been police officers who've won their cases, who've been on this half-pay suspension and all kind of thing. And some have been reinstated. They still didn't get their money back yet. Somehow along the line, we can't sit here and tell everybody be accountable for your taxes, everybody be accountable for everything else. But when it comes time to do right, we can make the excuse, okay, we can't do it, or the policy is this and the policy is that. I know you got to deal with things where they are, but my recommendation is create a separate committee to pull all these things together, because you got to get all these stuff in one room. And our Bahamian people needs to be paid what is due to them, whether it's from the government, from the church, from the private sector. It needs to be done. It needs to be done swiftly. And our people needs to pay attention. Oh, and just for the record, the reason why it was assumed, and that's why I want you to clarify it, because if you probably read your note and look at it again, when you happen to mention the $2 million you said in supplementary funding received for additional supplementary funding to the AG for that purpose. So it could have been just a write-out and a typo. And the sequence of events, you see what I'm saying, could run into that. So what I want to say to those many persons who I know, Madam President, and this is very critical, because people losing their houses and government owe them enough money to buy treehouse. No, this is serious. Kids can't go to school catching jitney and stuff, and the government owe them $50,000. Guarantee money, get the order and everything in the hand. You see what I'm saying? But we could waste money, and I said this under the previous administration too when I was around, but Pinewood, I said, y'all could build bridges, build this, build that, and you can't put money in Pinewood. We could be doing all this and all that, but you can't pay, which is owed to Bahamians. I have a problem with that in government, period, and that needs to be stopped. And I want to commend the AG in advance. No, I want to commend him, period, for the effort, because the effort is not contingent on him alone. And I will commend the government in advance if they're able to achieve the settlement of this layer of judgment debt by the time this next budget comes in. Because it's about time that we settle matters like these. It is too critical. And it's too important. So with that, I rest and I support the pension bill. And I want to thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator the Honorable Reuben Raming. As many?
Madam President.
The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Bonnet Ellis.
Madam President, I'm constantly humbled by the fact that I have been appointed to contribute in this most honorable place. And I have to say my reflections on the royal visit are slightly different from Senator Barry Griffin. But I would like to say that I attended the royal reception and that it was a wonderful opportunity to socialize and gather with my Senate colleagues and leave party politics. I am a monarchist. Yeah, give it to me. And leave party politics outside. April is Autism Awareness Month. And autism spectrum disorder is he's a knight, I can't be, Autism spectrum disorder is a neurobiological disorder that causes a wide range of impairments in social communication and repetitive behaviors. There is no cure, but with specialized education, behavioral therapy, and adequate support services, most persons with autism are productive and happy members of society. The REACH organization offers parental support and autism awareness education in the Bahamas. This year, REACH encourages everyone to honor autism awareness each Friday by wearing an Autism Strong shirt, which can be purchased from REACH's headquarters on the campus of Queens College, or simply by wearing the color blue. In order to gather more information about the presence of autism in the Bahamas, REACH will be launching a confidential survey, and I encourage all parents, especially those with children with special needs, to complete the survey. Government has an obligation to provide education to all children to the age of 16. This includes children with special needs, and in order to do this properly, they need to know the numbers and know the needs of the country. I rise again to contribute to the debate on the collection of pension bills with regard to Raymond Mackey, Zafis, Edison Delaveau, Mary Mitchell, and now Talis Bethel. The objectives of the bills are to bridge the years of public service for these individuals so that they can be deemed to have unbroken and continuous service. Section 24 of the Pension Act says that service in respect to which a pension or gratuity may be granted must be continuous. We've been presented now 4 bills which seek to allow these identified individuals to have their periods of service, which under the Act would have been excluded, included. Is this an indication, Madam President, of the government's, well, they've already indicated that they intend to amend the Pensions Act to allow for segments of public service to be calculated together. Governments are meant to act for the benefit of all citizens and residents within their borders. If government believes that it is in the interest of these 4 persons to bridge their periods of continuous service, then why is it not in the best interest of all persons to have all persons, so whether they have continuous service or broken service, to receive a pension, full pension? Government must be for the people. We, the people, Madam President, are in uncertain times. We are routinely waking up to reports of murder. We are helplessly watching as gas prices raise. We are gobsmacked by the prices in the food store. And unlike merchants who have been able to raise their prices and pass on the increased expense to customers, we have been helpless in the fight with the increased cost of living and our unincreasing resources. What is the government's plan? The previous administration was accused of failing the poor. In the blueprint, this government guaranteed a robust and expensive safety net for social relief for the Bahamian people. They also committed to enhancing crime-fighting methodologies in our aggressive war on crime. But I feel that is a different topic for a different day. They said they would reduce VAT to 10% and promise additional VAT relief. What is the additional relief? They said the cost of living is well beyond the means of middle and low-income Bahamians. They promised targets would be established to address the cost of living and aid in breaking the cycle of poverty. Madam President, we are still waiting. Again, I ask, what is the plan? The PLP spent 4.5 years in opposition, asking the government what is their plan. But during that time, they did not come up with their own plan. Maybe they didn't expect to win either, but they did win.
On a point of order.
We have-
On a point of order, Madam President. I didn't want
Chair
to.
recognizes Senator the Honorable Ryan
Thank
Pinder.
you. The senator is misleading the public. I didn't want to stand up, and I was hoping to be able to let her finish her contribution, but I couldn't let it go too much longer. Shortly after coming to the office, that we knew we were going to win, not that we had doubts about, we knew we were going to win the government. Shortly after coming to office, the Prime Minister and the Minister of Labor have signaled two notable reforms that will be put in place for the purposes of assisting the less fortunate in the country. The first would be an increase in the minimum wage. That has been foreshadowed. The second would be the implementation of a scheme for a livable wage, which is different from a minimum wage. It's a different construct. And that is being worked on as well with the Tripartite Council. I even think there was a press conference that the Minister of Labor and the Prime Minister attended themselves to talk about this commitment and where we were heading down that way. So for the senator to make the point that the government has done nothing, announced nothing, has not talked about any plans, has not talked about how we're going to assist those of less fortunate in the country is completely wrong and misleading to the Bahamian people, Madam President. And I in fact, I asked the senator just to withdraw that part, that we have done nothing and we have communicated nothing to how we are going to help the less fortunate.
Well,
Chair recognizes Senator Michael Barnett Ellis.
Thank you, Madam President. I think if the senator would wait until I finish, he would realize that the comments regarding what is their plan have to do with the present increase in gas and breadbasket items and other expenses that are plaguing the Bahamian people right now. I am glad that they have a plan. We are, however, waiting for the implementation and to see the action of the plan. As my grandmother said, mouth can say anything.
The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Dr. Eresia Hepburn.
Clearly, your grandmother and my grandmother hang out together because, like my Grammy said, mouth could say anything but money buy land. And we've clearly bought the land. It has been noted, I think more than a month ago, that along with social services, the Bahamas Agricultural Marine Science Institute is not only going to be providing for persons who need to be captured under the safety net, fresh fruits and vegetables with a box. The coupons have already been printed. We're working on the fine details. We're not a government of talk, but action. And we have accountability for where the money is spent with our food program, and we'll have a tracking on it.
Well,
Honorable Eresia Hepburn, Senator the Honorable Michael Ellis.
thank you, Madam President. I'm glad to hear that BAMC is providing food and fresh fruits, but I think when we discussed the BAMC bill, we all acknowledged that BAMC was not yet of the level to provide food to all homes, and that we hope that BAMC would expand so that we could all receive the benefit of the BAMC baskets. Madam President, if I may.
Yes,
Thank you.
Senator the Honorable, you may proceed.
Thank you. As I was saying, they did win. And we've listened for 4 months as they've harped on the same complaints that they made in opposition and on the campaign trail. But as Dorothy said to Toto, we aren't in Kansas anymore. They're not in opposition anymore. They don't have the luxury of complaining and being uncooperative just because. They are the government, and it's time to make decisions to provide relief. We have called upon them to remove the VAT from breadbasket items. Purdy Bakery has recently announced that the price of their delicious goods is going to be increased or has been increased. Jitney drivers have asked the government for relief. The price of gas has increased and their rates have not. Similarly, taxi cab drivers have also asked the government for relief. The price of gas has increased and their rates have not. Surely there must be some room for relief. While we wait for government to action its plan, we here engage in debate using the country's resources to approve a compendium of bills which will only benefit 4 people. I've said it before and I will say it often. If the government fails, we all fail. And in this place, we have a constitutional duty to make laws for peace, order, and good government in the Bahamas. May God continue to grant us the grace to carry out our constitutional duty, and may he continue to bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Thank you for your contribution, Senator Michael Barnett Ellis. As many.
I think I'm the last one on this side.
Chair recognizes Senator Darren Henfield.
Madam President, thank you. I'm honored to contribute to this bill, which ameliorates the circumstances surrounding the break in service for these professional and consummate public servants, one of whom I've had the privilege to work with very closely, Tellis Bethel, as Commander Defense Force during my time in the service. I wouldn't speak today ordinarily because I know we passed the time, but I feel as a former public servant myself, serving 36 years in our nation's military, I'm compelled to speak. Yeah, I was in the military, and then the only time I had an in-service award to read law, and then I went to the AG's office for 3 years, but I was always working for the government. Yeah, oh yeah. Huh? I take a pension. I take a small pension, and I wanna, and that's one of the reasons why I want to speak today. Madam President, I was fortunate to be granted a partial in-service award to study, and so I believe that as we look at these bills that will correct the time and service for these individuals who, for various and varied reasons, have to step away from the public service and come back, or in one instance, the estate of that person would be recognized. I think this is a good thing. My only concern is that consideration should be given to persons who were granted also like unpaid study leave. They went away, they got their education, and they came back and they're now contributing to the public service in some way, shape, or form, or stepped away, got their experience. Yeah, but they don't get it's unpaid. It's unpaid, right? It's unpaid. Yeah. But let me just say this here, right? And you mentioned John Pinder. I think he too who served as a unionist, I think, in the public service. But let's just pay him then. Let's just give him his pension. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that's all. I see. That's half of my speech gone. I mean, I just once I know we fix it, right? Yeah. Yeah, straight no, man, because I'm advised that only the presidents and secretary generals of the BPSU and the BUT are full-time officers of their respective organizations. And so I'm very happy to hear. And Big John, you should be happy to hear too. That's your cousin, who I know is a monarchist, and we will knight him, Sir Ryan. That's a good one. That has a ring to it, right? Right? He assures me that you're going to be sorted out. I personally know all too well, Madam President, that there are far too many public servants who retire and are forced to live from hand to mouth. Public servants were not given the opportunity and privilege, I believe, when the ceiling for NIB moved way back then to increase their contribution to NIB, because the consideration was that they're getting a pension from the government, and they're also going to get something from NIB. But they're not then accorded the same privilege or opportunity to receive the levels of pension from NIB that some their counterparts in the private sector might receive. Simply put, sometimes along the journey as a public servant toward 40 years, and Brother Forbes behind me there, this clerk in Parliament, has 45 years. I mean, that's amazing, right? 45 years of stellar public service and performance to the public service. Too many of them retire and they live hand to mouth. Too many of us live hand to mouth and almost in a state of impecuniosity or in a state of destitution, because the pension is not enough. And so I'm very pleased to hear that this government is looking at how we treat with pensions in the future. One of the suggestions that I wanted to make, and I believe the government might be looking at this already, is that you allow public servants to contribute to their pension, right? I, as a young Marine, would not have mind, even though you could do it privately, contributing having the Treasury take with some of my salary before I got it, a percentage of my salary that would go toward the accumulation of the size of the pension that I got later on, and so that's one of the things that I hope the minister will speak to that. That will remedy the possible outcome of many public servants who end up in dire straits following some 40 years of service. That might also complement and augment what public servants receive from NIB in their retirement. Such a plan would alleviate already the weighty burden on the public purse, and also help the retiring public officer to lead a more respectable and fiscally adroit lifestyle in retirement. We don't want our public servants who serve so well the public. And I see you looking at me, you ministers, loose coat, no hard tie goat feel, right? We understand how this goes. The Jamaicans say the same knife that cut sheep, cut goat, right? Same thing, right? We understand how this works, but this must be aired out in the public. Yeah. We get all of that. That's what my Senate colleague is talking about now. The financial and fiscal responsibilities of a government that sort of tethers that government to a place where it's not easy to make a decision on breadbasket items, on inflation continuing to grow, on the rising cost of fuel. These things are not easy because you still have these rating agencies that are breathing down your neck, watching your fiscal policies, and how we treat with taxation. There has to be a serious conversation about that in this country as well. Corporate taxation across the board, 15%. We have to discuss. We have to discuss all these things. What I'm saying is we have to have a discussion about it. I'm not going to speak out of turn. I'm going to get the consensus of my colleagues before I speak on something like that, as you should do in the cabinet before you speak, right? and come out with the government's position on the point. But the ball happens to be squarely in your court at the moment, and I know OECD, FATF, and the rest of them good people that we speak to all the time about how we collect taxes and how the first thing you learn in law school, and I think we'll address this next week when we look at the financial bills, is that the collection of taxes is the responsibility of the king. These people in Europe and other places have found very, very unique ways of trying to force us into collecting their taxes, and it's something that we have to keep an eye on. And so, Madam President, as I take my seat, just allow me to note the process of promotion in the public service is a well-established one, and as such, does not need to take an inordinate amount of time to get it done. Because while we sit around and dilly and dally, right? While we sit around and dilly and dally, public servants need their promotions and they need their monies. We don't have the luxury of just sitting around talking about you're reviewing this and you're reviewing that, because the same, the divisional system that I come from, it's a trusted one where divisional officers write on their subordinates, and that follows all the way up the chain. And these public servants are very, very good at doing that. They're very good at doing that. You at the table now, my brother. Don't tell me where I've been for 4 years. You're at the table now. You're at the table now, and so now it falls to you to correct the problems that we may have left in place. And as far as I'm concerned, we left the promotion on the table. You had to go review it for some reason, right? And that's fine. As an executive, you have the potential, the privilege to make that call. But public servants need their promotion, and we need to be more timely about the way we go. But these people serve hard and long, man. Sometimes they put in ordinate hours beyond those people in the private sector. I know about that because I have done it. You've had occasions where people spend months and months away, right, in the service of this country.
A point of clarification.
The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Darren Pickstock.
My lady, he can't clarify what I'm speaking to. He can make either he has a point of order that what I'm saying is not true, but he can't clarify nothing I say, and he hasn't spoken today, so I don't know what he can clarify.
I have a.
The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Darren Pickstock. And what is your
Chair lady,
clarification?
Madam President, I beg your pardon. I just wanted to clarify that I think the Honorable Senator is misleading the public in that the government has, by all accounts, promoted more people in 6 months that you guys promoted in the 4 years that you were there, right? And so that needs to be made clear. And I think the government is moving swiftly in its promotion. Thank you.
I don't think you could prove that. I don't believe you could prove that.
Senator.
Thank you.
Handfield, just let me deal with this,
Yes,
please. Senator the Honorable Darren Pickstock, your statement that you made, do you have the documents with you to table?
I don't have the documents at this time, Madam President.
Okay.
But I will seek to bring the documents to this House in our next sitting.
Thank you, Senator Pickstock. So until such time as you could bring those documents, I am going to request that you withdraw.
Certainly.
And at the next sitting, you can present the documents.
Certainly, Madam
President.
President.
At that time. Thank you, Senator Pickstock.
No, Madam President.
Senator Handfield, Chair recognizes Senator Handfield. Can you
The point
please?
he raises does not even rise to that level of seriousness to me. If that's your ruling, that's your ruling. But that's neither here nor there. We're not. What I'm saying, the only point I'm trying to make is that we must be in government more judicious about taking care of the needs of the promotions and the welfare of these people in the public service who sacrifice so much day in and day out, even though they carry that load, that burden that the public service is the worst in the world. That's the only point I'm trying to make. Whether you promoted more in 6 months, more power to you, brother. That's good. That's good. Because we were just talking about these circumstances of the economy, where when your economy shut down for 2 years, what you gonna do? Yeah, that's another thing you got to look at when you start to compare these apples and oranges, right? And so, having been in the chair of divisional supervisor and responsible for such reports, what I have found is that when we trust the process of the chain of reporting, It works best for all concerned. Public servants rightly entitled to their promotions should not have to wait an unreasonable amount of time to receive their just rewards because some executive, especially at the policy level, deems the system unsatisfactory. This system has been working for so long, for so many years. You know, they too need to pay their mortgages. They too need to pay their tuitions. They too need to address the rising cost of groceries and fuel. They too need to keep up with the cost of living. And I hope when we review our pensions, that we look at how we accord public servants the ability, outside of the 2-year thing that NIB does, then increase the amount of benefits every 2 years, I think it is, where we look at how we keep pace with the rise in the cost of living. You know, I Googled for this thing, I Googled one of my counterparts. I Googled my counterparts in the United States who perhaps retired as a commander. And I'm ashamed to say here, and because I Googled what a general gets who retired as Lieutenant Bethel, as an admiral. You just you know, and it's shameful, but you know, then it comes back to our form of taxation, where the money comes from, right? And so we must take a holistic look at these very issues, especially in these challenging economic times in which we find ourselves. So let's get on with it. My namesake, and Madam President, I thank you, and I rest. Thank you very much.
I thank you for your contribution, Senator Henfield.
Madam President, just to wrap up and on this as we, and then I will move the second reading of the others. Madam President, several points made by senators. Firstly, I'll address the issue of that Senator Henfield raised about the need to address the pension plan and provide for contributions. And as a matter of fact, in the last PLP administration, the last Christie administration, we did commission a study to that very effect. The study was completed. We had actually moved to the point of beginning to consult with the public sector unions to get their buy-in and input. And that is something that we have taken up again. And it is, when we spoke about doing the amendments, it is something that we're looking to, because as you rightly say, individuals being able to contribute eventually, over the passage of time, as the fund accumulates, it will lead to less of a strain on the consolidated fund. And as it happens now, government pays pensions and gratuities out of revenue. I share the frustration of Senator Raming and it is unacceptable that people have to wait so long for payments, and it's something that we have to address. Likewise with promotions, and where, for example, we are now trying to deal with the matter of of customs, and I think we dealt with immigration, but just our processes need to change, and so that we can deal with these matters in a more efficient manner. Senator Ellis lamented the fact that we have not provided immediate relief as we said we would, but Madam President, one of the first things we did was to fulfill our promise to drop VAT from 12% to 10%. We have increased the public pensions to retired public servants, and we've restored increments to public servants, and those people have begun to receive the increments that were frozen over the last 2 years. By relaxing the restrictive curfew, we've allowed businesses to operate extended hours and people to go back to work. The issue of raising the fares as the taxi and the jitney, well, we know we have hundreds, maybe thousands of jitney drivers, but we have tens of thousands of riders. And so when you're talking about raising the fares, you might, on the one hand, bring some relief to the driver, but how do you impact those who are riding? Madam President, we live in volatile times. As we look at curfew, COVID in the rearview mirror, we have geopolitical events, war and disruption, and that are causing some difficulties in terms of inflation. We are looking at ways to deal with it. It might not be as simple a matter as, for example, remove the tax on gasoline, but there's some other things that we are examining. Because, as I always say, Madam President, we do not want to appear unsympathetic when we're talking about rising prices and particularly low-income earners. But the government must be able to manage its affairs so that it can continue to deliver the services to the public. So we have to be prudent in what we do, because these things are volatile. In the early stages, for example, of the disruption, we had fuel, oil prices go up over $130 a gallon. It is a barrel. And it has fluctuated, and it's now moved about $102 this morning when I came out, because yes, I watch it every day. and we're hopeful that it moves down to a more normal level. Unhappily, there's disruption, and there's we didn't stop that. And long story. And so we are being impacted by many things that are out of our control, and we just ask for patience and forbearance from the Bahamian people as we look into how we can bring some relief. And so with that, Madam President, I want to just move for second reading of the Telus Bethel pension bill.
It has moved and second that the following bill be read for a second time. A bill for an act to provide for a pension for Telus Bethel, retired Commodore of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to provide for a pension for Telus Bethel, retired Commodore of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force.
For the second reading of bills.
Yes, Madam President, I move for second reading and committal of the Japheth Edison Delaveau pension bill.
Is there a second? It has been moved and second that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to provide for the continuous service in the public service of Japheth Edison Delaveau. As many as in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to provide for the continuous service in the public service of Japheth Edison Delaveau.
For the second reading of bills.
Yes, Madam President. Madam President, I move for second reading and committal of the Raymond Mackey pension bill.
It has been moved and second that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to provide for the continuous service in the public service of Raymond Mackey. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to provide for the continuous service in the public service of Raymond Mackey.
Further second reading of bills.
Yes, Madam President. And finally, I move for second reading and committal of the Mary Mitchell pension bill.
Is there a second? It has been moved and second that the following bill be read for a second time and committed. A bill for an act to provide for the continuous service in the public service of Mary Mitchell. As many as are in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to provide for the continuous service in the public service of Mary Mitchell.
For the second reading of bills. Committee of the Whole Senate.
Madam President, I move that the Senate to resolve itself into a committee of the whole with the Vice President in the chair.
Is there a second? It has been moved and second that the Senate do now resolve itself into the committee of the whole with the Vice President as chairman of the committee of the whole in the chair. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. The Senate will now resolve itself in the committee of the whole with the Vice President and chairman of the committee of the whole in the chair.
Committee of the Whole.
Mr. Chairman, in respect of the National Honors Amendment Bill, I move that the long title be agreed.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the National Honors Amendment Bill be agreed. As many are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose, say nay. The motion is agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the short title be agreed.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the National Honors Amendment Bill be agreed. As many are in favor, say aye. Those who oppose, say nay. The motion is agreed. The short title is agreed.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I move that clauses 2 to 8 be agreed.
It has been moved and seconded that clauses 2 through 8 of the National Honors Amendment Bill be agreed. As many are in favor, say aye. Those who oppose, say nay. The motion is agreed. The motion is carried. Clauses 2 through 8 of the bill are agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I now move that the bill be agreed in its entirety.
It has been moved and seconded that the National Honors Amendment Bill in its entirety be agreed. As many are in favor, say aye. Those who oppose, say nay. The bill is agreed in its entirety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, in respect of the Telus Bethel Pension Bill, I move that the long title be agreed.
It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the Telus Bethel Bill be agreed. As many are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose, say nay. The motion is carried.
Mr. President, I move, Mr. Chairman, that the short title be agreed.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the Telus Bethel Bill be agreed. As many are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose, say nay. The motion is agreed. The short title is agreed. Senator Lightborn, you practicing for something?
Thank you, Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move that clauses 2 and 3 be agreed.
It has been moved and seconded that clauses 2 through 3 of the Telus Bethel Bill be agreed. As many are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose, say nay. The motion is agreed. The motion is carried. Clauses 2 and 3 of the bill are agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the bill be now agreed in its entirety.
Is there a second? It has been moved and seconded that the bill in its entirety be agreed. As many are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose, say nay. The motion is agreed. The bill is agreed in its entirety.
Mr. Chairman, now in respect of the Japheth Edison Delaveau Pension Bill, I move that the long title be agreed.
Is there a second? It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the Japheth Edison Delaveau Bill be agreed. As many are in favor, say aye. Those who oppose, say nay. The motion is agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the short title be now agreed.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the Japheth Edison Delaveau bill be agreed. As many are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose, say nay. The motion is agreed. The short title is agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I move that clause 2 be agreed.
Is there a second? It has been moved and seconded that clause 2 of the bill be agreed. As many are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose, say nay. The motion is agreed. The motion is carried. Clause 2 of the bill is agreed.
Mr. Chairman, for clause 3, I need to move an amendment. In line 2, the bill says, having regard to the effluxion of time and notwithstanding the payment of pension or gratuity to Japheth Edison Delaveau. They spelled Edison in that case with two Ds. And I want to move an amendment, and it is the amendment, delete the word Edison, Eddison, wherever it appears, and substitute the word Edison with one D. So in clause 3 of the bill, they put two Ds, and we just want to correct that. So I move the following amendment: delete amendment to clause 3, delete the word Edison wherever it appears, and substitute the word Edison, Edison.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that clause 3 of the bill be agreed as amended. Those who are in favor say aye. Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The motion is carried. Clause 3 of the bill is agreed as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move that the bill be agreed in its entirety.
Is there a second? It has been moved and seconded that the bill in its entirety be agreed. As many are in favor say aye. Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The bill is agreed in its entirety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, now in respect to the Raymond Mackey pension bill, I move that the long title be agreed.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the Raymond Mackey pension bill be agreed. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move that the short title be agreed.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the Raymond Mackey pension bill be agreed. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The short title is agreed.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I do now move that clauses 2 and 3 be agreed.
Is there a second? It has been moved and seconded that clauses 2 and 3 of the bill be agreed. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The motion is carried. Clauses 2 and 3 of the bill are agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move that the Raymond Mackey pension bill be now agreed in its entirety.
Is there a second? It has been moved and seconded that the bill in its entirety be agreed. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The bill is agreed in its entirety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In respect of the Mary Mitchell pension bill, I move that the long title be agreed.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the Mary Mitchell pensions bill be agreed. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the short title be agreed.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. As many are in favor say aye. Aye. Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The short title is agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I move that clause 2 of the bill be agreed.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that clause 2 of the bill be agreed. As many are in favor say aye. All those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The motion is carried. Clause 2 of the bill is agreed.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I move that the bill be now agreed in its entirety.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the bill in its entirety be agreed. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The bill is agreed in its entirety.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the President do now take the chair.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the President do now take the chair. As many are in favor, say aye. Those who oppose, say nay. The motion is carried. Madam President will now take the chair. Madam President, I beg leave to report that the Committee of the Whole has examined all bills committed before the Senate. One bill, the Japheth Edison Delaveau Pensions Bill, had one amendment thereto. The other bills were passed with no amendments.
Third reading and passing of bills.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move for third reading and passage of the National Honors Amendment Bill 2022.
Second.
It has been agreed and second. It's been moved and second that the following bill be read a third time and passed. As many as in favor, say aye. Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Or that the bill be read for a third time and pass.
A bill for an act to amend the National Honors Act 2016.
For the third reading. Yeah. Order that the bill do now pass and the title thereof declared to be the National Honors Amendment Act 2022. For the third reading of bills.
Yes, Madam President, I move for third reading and passage of the Telus Bethel Pension Bill 2022.
It has been moved and second that the following bill be read a third time and passed. As many as in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Or that the bill be read for a third time and passed.
A bill for an act to provide for a pension for Telus Bethel, retired Commodore of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force.
Order that the bill do now pass and the title thereof be declared an act to provide for the pension for Telus Bethel, retired Commodore of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, Act 2022. Okay. For the third reading of bills.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for third reading and passage of the Japheth Edison Delaveau Pension Bill.
It has been moved and second that the following bill be read for a third time and pass. As many as in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Order that the bill be read for a third time and pass.
Order that the bill be read. A bill for an act to provide for the continuous service in the public service of Japheth Edison Delaveau.
Order this bill do now pass and the title hereby declared. This act may be cited as the Japheth Edison Delaveau Pension Act 2022 and shall be construed as one of the Pensions Act. For the third reading of bills.
Yes, Madam President. Madam President, I move for third reading and passage of the Raymond Mackey Pension Bill 2022.
Is there a second? It has been moved and second that the following bill be read a third time and pass. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Order the bill be read a third time and passed.
A bill for an act to provide for the continuous service in the public service of Raymond Mackey.
Order that this bill do now pass, and the title therefore declared to be Raymond Mackey Pension Act 2022. For the third reading of bills.
Yes, and finally, Madam President, I move for third reading and passage of the Mary Mitchell Pensions Bill 2022.
Is there a second? It has been moved and second that the following bill be read a third time and pass. As many as in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Order the bill be read a third time and pass.
A bill for an act to provide for the continuous service in the public service of Mary Mitchell.
Order that this bill do now pass, and the title thereof declared to be Mary Mitchell Pensions Act 2022. For the third reading of bills.
There are none, Madam President.
Consideration of House amendments, resolutions, discharge of select committees, notices for future meetings.
Madam President, I would like to renew all notices in the name of the government.
Orders for clerk. Adjournment.
Madam President, I move that the Senate at its rising do adjourn until Wednesday, the 6th of April, 2022 at 10 a.m.
It has been moved and second that the Senate at its rising do adjourn to April 6, 2022 at 10 a.m. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion is carried. Final adjournment.
Madam President, once again, thank all senators for their contributions today, and I move that the Senate do now adjourn.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and second that the Senate now adjourn. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. It has been carried. The Senate stands adjourned to April 6, 2022.